Hello and welcome to yet another Legends of Runeterra podcast. We have a very special guest today in Drisoth, Mika Lupa as well from Twitter and from Twitch. Welcome, glad to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
And our co-host is Leer. Thank you for joining me, Leer.
Hello, I'm glad to be here.
So, Drisoth, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I've been playing Runeterra for a little while. I'm probably most known for various Burblefish decks. Recently, that's mostly been Nami, but I'm a competitive player. I'm well attached to bilge water spells at this point, but I've top cut seasonals 3 times. I won an OLS. I'm going to be playing in Worlds in a few weeks. So
Great. Yeah, I love your streams, often watch them, and also your Twitter posts are always so thoughtful and informative. Like you take. And for the people new to the channel, Leer, you are going to join us more often in the future. Our co-host, Zwick, is going to take a break. Tell us a little bit about yourself, since it's the first episode where you come back.
Right, yeah, I'm also a German player. I'm part of APG, and I also play competitively. I was on here on the podcast for winning 2 fight nights a couple months back, and yeah, now I'm back.
So today we are going to raid the newest expansion, Darkin Saga Domination. We're going to look at all the cards, and as you see over here on the right, we gave them a rating from 1 to 10, where 10 is the best meta warping card, and 1 is unplayable, Solaris Delacron like type of card. And we'll be starting with Varus. I hope I pronounce him correctly. A 4-mana 3/4 Darkin, attack, origin, arrow of attribution, auto equips the Darkin bow, and the origin is just that you can put any cultist card into your deck during deck building. Once you've played 3 cultist spells this time, you draw Varus. Kayn it was units, Varus it's spells, and his Darkin bow is basically loading up whenever you play a Squall or equipment. Gets +1/+0 as a max +5/+0 until the bearer strikes. Varus hits something, then it resets to 0 and then can be charged up again. Once you've targeted allies 8+ times, so opposite of Ezreal, levels up, and now the Darkin bow has max 10 and activates twice, and also Varus has Overwhelm. I've rated this guy a 7, Drisoth a 4, and Leer a 3. I'm of the opinion that he will be meta, as the other 2 competitive players think he won't be very good. Maybe Drisoth start us up. Why do you think Varus won't see that much play?
So, the main thing that I have an issue with Varus is I don't really see him leveling up quickly, possibly at all in most games. Targeting 8+ allies is like not an insignificant challenge. I mean, I'm kind of getting the sense they expect you to kind of like float around some equipments to level them up, and that will make a decent amount of progress, but you pretty much have to spend like a mana to get an EXP on Varus. You have to spend a 1 mana equipment, maybe you can play a gem. It's difficult to do better than 1 mana for 1 EXP. And with that, I have a hard time seeing Varus leveling up in time. If you do level him up, he's pretty decent. He's a large attack overwhelm unit, but he's nothing that I'm just like blown away by. He hits for 14 sometimes in overwhelm, but you're probably gonna have to hit at least twice with Varus before you win the game. And I just have a hard time seeing this guy do a whole lot. The one saving grace for Varus to me is since his origin draws him, I think you can play champion splits that are like 3 Kayn, 1 Varus, and 2 Jarvan. And I could definitely see these like Demacia Kayn decks free rolling a Kayn and not a Kayn, free rolling a Varus and expecting to draw him somewhere in the mid game and just playing him because a free card is pretty good. But I'm not very interested in a deck that's like really built around Varus.
My reasoning for having him so high is, first of all, I didn't realize, which makes it a little bit worse, but a card that's really, really good with him is Mentor's Choice. As with most spell type things, it triggers him twice and also levels him up by 2 occultist cards. You can just play it with him all the time. And just coming from MTG, I think these spell-based payoffs are usually quite strong in these lower powered formats, like Terra currently still is. So you can just slap a guy and then play a bunch of spells and charge up this big attack. We also have the champion spell. Give an enemy vulnerable, give an ally +1/+0. Again, this is not a card you can actually put into your deck. This is Terra champion. Leer, what are your thoughts on Varus?
No, not really. I agree with Drisoth that Varus doesn't win you the game when he levels instantly, and that's kind of the problem that he's just really slow, and even in his unleveled form, he doesn't really do that much. So yeah, I don't really see him seeing a lot of play, to be honest.
Yeah, we'll have to. And next card here, I think we can just once go over to the Blooming Cultist. 3 mana, 3/2 with a tune. Cultist, so you can play it in Kane in any of these Kane and Varus right now. Battle City. And once you've equipped an ally this game, grant me elusive. And yeah, for rating, here we are. Drisoth, you don't like this elusive one. Surprised by that? Like elusive decks.
It is the type of card that I would enjoy, but just not. I don't know. We've seen this type of card with. It's a 3/2. It's elusive if you played a spell this turn. It's like a Mirai card. It came out with Nami.
Yes.
Everybody was super excited for that card because it was a 2 mana 3/2 elusive, and it just didn't do anything. So yeah, Mirai Songstress. I think this one's condition is a little bit easier, but instead of being just 2 unit mana, it's 3 with a tune. So I'm not high on 2 mana 3/2 elusives at this point after seeing Mirai Songstress.
I also feel like it's not the best region having it in Bandle City, right?
Yeah.
I feel like if it was like in Ionia, maybe it would be easier to utilize.
Sure. Yeah, I will say like I think I very reasonably could just be wrong on this card, and I think the reason would be that I'm misevaluating the cultist tag. The cultist tag could be worth a lot, and I'm not really thinking it's worth a lot right now. But if the cultist tag is more valuable, then I think this card could be a lot better, just because it's like a passable cultist.
I don't think you will see this in Ionia and Battle City very often, as outside of portals, but maybe just in a cultist deck. Maybe even with like Varus, where you have like play a lot of spells on exclusive units, and then you can up. I think it can be a place. Don't know if it will dominate the meta or anything. Especially if you compare it to Mirai Songstress. Kinda convinced me that it won't be a big threat. Okay, next card here is the Sudden Surge. 4 mana burst, Bandle City, also the cultist tag. Once you have equipped an ally this game, I cost 2 less. That's kind of a cycle. You have a lot of cards that cost 2 less when you have equipped an ally. And this also counts improvise units. Grow an ally to 5/5 this round. How this works is he goes up to 5 health. Then let's say you have a 3/2, goes up to 5 health, and if he gets damaged by 3, it goes down to a 3/2 in the end. Goes for once, but doesn't stick around. Okay, we all have pretty similar rating on this. I gave it a 4, Drisoth a 4, and yeah, a 6. Yeah, do you see any big potential in this card or any specific combo you point out?
Yeah, I think this is just a better suit up, and I can imagine that it really works really well with Flame Chompers and the Lulu package, and I think also Bandle City and Filter and Zaun go well together in decks. So I personally see this having some potential. It's always a question like how potent the whole archetype will be, but I can definitely see like this card seeing play in competitive environment.
You think it's a better suit up despite only being for 1 round, not being permanent?
Oh, maybe I didn't see the temporary. Oh, okay. I didn't actually. I thought that it was permanent. Okay, that changes stuff.
I would also rate it a 6 if it was permanent.
Me too. We all agree. Yeah, like also in Magic, we have this effect a lot in 2 mana, and it's usually not worth it because you need to have a unit that wins a combat with this, and then you just get a little bit of value out of it, but usually just having a +2/+2 or 1/2 would be better. I don't really see this card.
Yeah, then this is like a bad purple berry shake, right? I just
Like a
think
big
of
purple
this.
berry shake, like 1 more mana gets more stats, but
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. It's like general note of this. Okay, then we have the Buhru Cultist, a 1 mana 2/2 in Bilgewater and a Cultist. When equipped, allies attack, deal 1 to the enemy nexus. And also the skill here, the Piercing Bolt, skill that's going to attack. That's basically a Crackshot Corsair for equipped allies, but also a 2/2. And we also all agree.
I assume if you attack with 2 equipped allies, you still only get 1 ping, right?
Yes,
Okay.
it's just Crackshot Corsair.
Yeah,
About
I assumed that was the case because it would be absurd otherwise, but
Also, the it summons like the spell, right? And the spell has the tag of cultist, and like does this count as like somehow playing a cultist card or something?
I don't think so
there's
because it
nothing that
says
cares about there's nothing that cares about cultist cards. I know we've had problems with spells, like skills counting as spells before, where like Catalog of Regrets would make skills in your hand. It was a bug, to be clear. That wasn't intended.
Okay.
But it wouldn't shock me if Buhru Cultist helped you draw Varus on release, and then they fixed it. But it's definitely not supposed to.
not intended for sure. So from the power level, I think we all agree it's just a good card. Drisoth, how many equipments do you want to run before you want to put this into a deck? Like, is just like 1 improvise guy enough? Or
I think pretty much every aggressive Bilgewater deck is going to be playing through Cultist. I think most decks at this point should be playing like at least 3 equipments between improvise and actual equipments, and sometimes up to like 6 to 8. Bilgewater has access to good equipments between, it's coming up later, but the Darkin Harpoon, but Bilgewater's improvise unit is pretty solid. It's the Piltover Castaway, which the name makes it sound like a Piltover card, but it's also Bilgewater. This is one of the better weapon masters. It's not as good as Hookmaster, but it's a very good weapon master, and you're just going to see these like Bilgewater decks that have a good aggressive 1-drop in Buhru Cultist and equipments to activate it. 1 mana 2/2s just don't need very much to be good, and this has a little bit of gravy for your 1 mana 2/2. And I think it'll be good.
Yeah, right. I totally agree that this card is even good when you don't deal the 1 nexus damage. Just having a 2/2 stats line for 1 mana is already pretty good for a card.
Okay, next one. The Unending Wave. 4 mana burst in Bilgewater and a Cultist. Once you have equipped an ally this game, I cost 2 less, draw 2, and give them fleeting. Oh, perfect match here. 7/7/7/7. All 3 rated it a 7. So Leah, tell our viewers what you like about this card.
So the big question was, will Nami get nerfed? Of course, and that's like a huge factor. Because if she wasn't, like this card would be absolutely nuts for her archetype. And also, it definitely has potential with Twisted Fate, and then the question becomes, when does Twisted Fate get rotated? That's also a question for me, but just overall, it's you draw 2 cards, and it's just low risk. I feel like with this card, even if you only play 1 card that you use, paying 2 mana for it is fine, I think. And yeah, it's just a very solid card, I think. And having an ally equipped this game, I think, is an easy condition to fulfill in the current game where equipments and improvising is just so good.
Drisoth, you play a lot of these Nami decks and a lot of the general spell decks. You also have the Eye of Nagakaburos, I think. Is there ever a place where you have too many of these draw 2 effects? Like, do you play 3 Eye and then do Unending Wave, or just split it, or...
You could definitely reach a point with too many draw effects. I mean, last meta we had Ionia Nami that started, I think it started off on 5 draw 2s between 3 eyes and 2 deep meds, and it's slowly cut back. Now the normal is 3, some people play 4, but you can definitely have too many. But I think you're going to see these like Bilgewater decks move to kind of a different flavor. So obviously with the Nami nerf, there's less of this incentive to go up the curve and play like spells to clear out your spell mana, and you're just going to see like lots of cheap units like Buhru Cultist and backed up with Eye of Nagakaburos and Unending Wave for your top end. Very similar to like Pirates from 2 metas ago, I think. Something like that. Where you just like have a lot of units and a lot of value baked into your deck, and there isn't really any true top end. You're not playing cards like old Pirates where they would play like Jack the Winner, where it's like real top end, or Gangplank. They just play like Nagakaburos and just assume they're never going to run out of cards. So.
Good old times where Jack the Winner was meta. Long time ago. Yeah. Okay. Next card. I think we covered this one pretty well. Lunari Cultist, a 2-mana 1/3 cultist, and in Targon. And it's when I'm summoned, or once you've equipped an ally this game, create a gem in hand. So how I read this is you get 2 gems in total, right?
Yeah, otherwise the card would make sense.
You do get 2 gems, yes.
I'm sticking with my low rating. I gave it a 3, Leer gave it a 4. Drisoth, you have the highest with 6. What do you like about this card? Where do you see this card?
I think a 1/3 stat line for 2 mana is like defensible from a defensive card. I mean, I have been known to play Coral Creatures back before it was a 1/3. So I think like the stat line is tolerable, and if you're getting 2 gems out of it, I think this card is reasonably compelling. I'm not going to give it like a 7 or an 8. This card is not amazing or anything, but I see it as kind of a defensively slanted Mountain Goat. Offensive decks are obviously still going to want Mountain Goat, but defensive decks might be interested in this card because it just gets them value for sure. So stuff like the old Thresh Azole, I could see wanting this card. Mountain Goat trading is pretty valuable, but I don't know. 6 might be a little high, but I would have a hard time rating it lower than 5. So
maybe the cultist tag is also worth something, right? If you want to draw a cane or something.
Like what this card reminded me of was the Soothsayer back in the day. Everybody was like, oh my god, a 1/4 is going to be so good for these defensive archetypes just to block down all the units. And then it just died to Broadwing and any buff. Or basically very little play outside of the all-in Shurima combo deck.
Yeah, 1/3 stat lines are bad. Like, if anybody's talking about this card and they're telling you the stat line is good, it's not. The stat line is bad. It comes with 2 like things. Like, it gives you cardboard. I came from physical card games, so they were literally made out of cardboard, and so it gives you some cardboard for your troubles. But the card is not fantastic.
Okay, you can settle on that, I think. I also think you can just learn like Gift Giver if you want. Immediately. Yeah, but maybe the cultist tag makes it better. Okay, the Expanses protection. I think this is a crazy one. See if you all agree. No! Oh my god, it's going to be interesting. So me and Leah both gave it a 9. Drisoth, you gave it a 4. Let's read the card first. 4-mana burst in Targon. Once you've equipped an ally in this game, it costs 2 less. And then you give an ally Space Shield this round. Or 2 mana. Drisoth, you don't like this card. Why? So good.
I do not. So I just do not think single turn spell shield grant effects are particularly powerful. With stuff like Eula, Bastion is kind of a bad comparison just because of how expensive it is. But there's relatively common and pleasant ways to grant spell shield in Targon. And I have a hard time seeing just 2 mana give spell shield being particularly good. The condition is free, that's not a big deal, but I would call people's attention back to like what the reaction was to Supercharge, where everybody kind of lost their mind about Supercharge, and admittedly Supercharge was incredibly broken with busted Kaisa, but people thought this card was going to be incredible in Lee Sin, incredible with Nasus, incredible with all of these decks, and it just didn't do anything because these spells to grant spell shield just aren't as good as you think they are. This one's
Yeah.
grant, though. Supercharge is grant, but
I feel like Supercharge, for example, is focus speed, which makes it a little dead. I feel like if you want to give spell shield with a card, it doesn't need to be grant, because why would you ever play like your spell shield like Bastion before someone casts a spell? Like maybe with Taric to grant it on another unit, but otherwise I feel like spell shield is a reactive keyword if you want to play it as a spell. And with the Expanse protection, it's just so low cost and low risk, I feel like, that even if you spell shield, worst case, a Viofeast or something, it's still your even mana. So I feel like it's very low risk to play this card. If you don't happen to draw 3 in your hand and can't do anything. And that's why I just think this card is really powerful.
I have to agree, although I can see a Drisoth argument as well, especially looking at the support card, moral support. I also thought this card would be super broken because you just have to support once, then you get barrier, which is free, but didn't really see that much play outside of Shendex.
Yeah.
Much play. Maybe this card will give matters. Maybe it doesn't. I still think the 2 mana just counter a spell basically that targets a unit. It's pretty good. Like some decks even ran Memory Cloak before. What do you thought would happen? Very similar to Memory's Cloak. Just
yeah, it's so like spell shield isn't quite deny. I mean, it obviously like that's the clearest comparison, but there's this problem of like spell shield kind of is a deny that your opponent can select what they deny. So they cast a Ravenous Flock or something, and you're trying to spell shield it, they can re-up with any targeting spell in their hand. So group shot, pokey stick, blah, 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 blah. Any targeting spell will allow them to like pop the spell shield and resolve the Ravenous Flock, while like deny or notify would probably be more common in those situations. You're choosing to notify the Ravenous Flock, and they have to re-up with another Ravenous Flock, not just anything, making you like go look through every card in the game.
it's fine. Like I'm always concerned for the viewers that might not play the game for that long and not memorize all the cards. That's why I'm showing them on the screen. Totally fine, and that's what I'm here for. But yeah, I can see the argument that with Memory Cloak you can always counter the spell you want, and the spell shield can just be. Maybe this is more like in the middle, like 7 or something, and maybe a one-off instead of the one-off Bastion run in some decks. We have to see. Paper, it sounds like a crazy card, but maybe it isn't.
If Lee Sin went back to Targon, I'm much more interested in this card. But that would
Yeah,
require
right.
like that would require like a Sunlight Blade Reaver. Otherwise, Lee Sin's never gonna go back to Targon. So.
Good. Next card, Icevale Cultist. 5 mana, 5/5, and as the name says, also a cultist. Your equipped allies have Overwhelm, and we kinda all agree. I gave it a 4. Drisoth, you gave it a 4. Leer, you gave it a 3. Drisoth, why do you think this card is not going to see play?
You just don't see a point to this card. I mean, like, probably the most exciting one would be like, I don't know, the Jax Ornn deck that people were playing at the start of this meta. But the problem was like that deck just was really, really bad. So, for this card to be good, you need a lot of equipped units, which kind of limits you to jacks. I mean, there's a couple of decks that get 2, maybe 3 equipped units, but it's hard to get like a wide board. They can't have natural overwhelm, which kind of causes this problem with jacks because when he levels, and if you have a wide board of equipped units, he's going to level quickly. He gets overwhelmed. So I just like don't see what this card is for. Like, it's a 5/5 for 5. That's not the worst stat line I've ever seen. We got some reputation support. But like, I just don't see it. I don't understand what wants this card.
Yeah. The worst thing is it's not a weapon master, so you can't even play it in checks, like with the origin. You have to like play checks Freljord just fit it in. But yeah, it's really like you need a lot of things to go right. Like you said, whiteboard with allies that just have to come through, are all equipped. Just going to. Okay, then we have the Unforgiving Cold, a 4-mana first spell that frostbite stuff, which usually immediately gives this like a 1 or 2 because we have like infinite of these already. Special thing about this is it's a cultist card, so you can play it outside of Ash and in all of these cultist decks. And the effect is Frostbite, the strongest enemy you have equipped an ally this game, copy me. How this works is I hope you don't copy the same enemy twice. Copy the one and then copy the other one. How it should work if it's marked out early.
Should be strongest, and then that one's frozen, so
Yeah.
frostbite something else.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because there's like Space Shield and it's Frostbite twice, maybe.
If they have 1 unit, I guess it would frostbite it twice, which I suppose matters for Ash.
But if they have like 1 Space Shield unit, break the Space Shield and then Frostbite it.
Oh yeah, that would work. Yeah.
Okay, so I gave it a 6, Drisoth gave it a 7, Leer only a 3. Why do you think this card is bad?
Oh, I think this is the worst Harsh Winds, personally. Especially with Harsh Winds going down to 5 mana. I find it hard to imagine why you would run the Unforgiving Cold over Harsh Winds. Well, the Cultist tag maybe might be like the breaking point, but otherwise I think Harsh Winds doesn't see much play, so why should the Unforgiving Cold?
I mean, Harshmans doesn't see play because like Ash doesn't see play. Think about the cultists, then you have to strike with your cane. You can block and frostbite, level up your cane. It's like I don't see this in Ash at all. Drisoth, you agree?
Yeah. I mean, my comment would basically be, I think like the reason Harsh Winds doesn't see play is because SI Freljord Control is just not a playable archetype and hasn't been for a long time, and Ash is also just an playable archetype. So if you get Harsh Winds in a place where it can be played outside of these just very bad archetypes, I'm interested in the card again. But I agree, Harsh Winds and even slightly better Harsh Winds, maybe a side grade from Harsh Winds. I'm not excited about that card, but that it has a cultist tag and can go in Varus or Kane, that interests me.
We'll have to see how
Right,
much.
and
Okay. Go ahead.
And it copies itself, so it counts as 2 spells for Varus, right?
Yeah.
I'm not so. When I originally saw all these spells that copy themselves, I actually wondered, do you only actually need to play 2 spells to draw a Varus? Because you're supposed to draw like after you play 3 spells, which intuitively talks to me like intuitively to me that would imply like 3 different or like not like you have to play 3 differently named spells, but like I feel like you should have to play 3 spell cards, but since so many of them copy themselves, is it just play 2 cards, draw Varus?
Well, the thing is, there is a difference for units if you play them or summon them, right? So does this also work for spells that you summon the spell when you copy it and you don't play it?
I think since the play cast change doesn't care.
As a rulebook person, I can talk about it a little bit because there are different types of listeners. So basically, cards that want to hear that you play a spell. And for example, the Karma used to not work with the so Karma basically doubles each spell you play, and she would just go infinite with herself if each copy you make would also count as a played card. However, people were sad that the copy that Karma made doesn't count as a played card for Lux, for example. Play spells to level up and to get these final sparks. So they changed the way different listeners work. So Karma, Chase, and everybody that copies doesn't count the copied spell as a played spell. All the other effects still count the copy as a play. For example, Listen counts copy as play. So the majority of effects the majority of effects counted as a play. There are some exceptions, and if they really wanted to make Varus work differently, they could make this origin an exception and have to test it. I would guess it, like a momentous choice, would progress this by 2. My guess.
That's interesting. Then you can draw a Varus really easy.
Okay, where did we end? Unforgiving Cold. Nice card, you have to see. And then the Ambition. Next. 4 mana, 3/5 in PNC. Cultist. And once equipped and ended this game, create a new spell. Costs 2 in hand and set its cost to 0. It's kind of a mix up like both a Seraphine support with the new spell, also a Cultist. So maybe Varus and Seraphine archetype supposed to go together. But we'll see Seraphine later. And for now, I gave it a 6, Leer gave it a 5. Drisoth, you're not high on this card. Don't you like about it?
That it's not manifest. If it was manifest, I think I'm on board. But since it's just a random 2-cost spell, I do not think. I don't know. I've cast some sputtering song spitters in my time. There are some bad 2-cost spells.
I think the.
Yeah, that's.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that's to be honest also what I thought when I saw this card first. Like, yeah, if it's manifest, it would be really good, but 2-cost spells can be really bad. They can also be Mystic Shot or something, which is really nice. So you kind of have to live with the randomness.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna like have some perfectly fine hits. Mystic Shot, Pokey Stick, single combat. There's plenty of reasonable hits. Without it being manifest, I'm worried about this card being reliable. And then the problem that I was having is PNZ currently doesn't have a good equipment, and that hasn't really been solved. I guess we're going to come up on the PNZ Darkin equipment, and I'll elaborate more at that point. But it's got an issue with like not having fantastic equipment, and then the Cultists deck I don't think particularly is interested in a 4-drop. So I didn't see a home, and I got various problems. I'm gonna tell you, I'm not a fan of Catalyst.
Maybe with all of the free spells.
I think you can look at the first line in the decks and win rates and figure out why I'm not a fan of this card.
Look, 61%.
There are some better ones. That one's fine, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I have a question. If it would, like, Ambitious Cultist would say, create a new spell from your regions, would that change things?
I think that would help. I still just think like random new spells is a little bit too much variance for me to be super interested in this card. It does have a very good stat line. 3/5 for 4 mana is an excellent stat line. But I don't know. I'm just not seeing it.
I looked at all of the 2-cost spells in each region before because we have Trail of Evidence in the game, a random card. But basically, I looked at each of the best and worst options in the region. And the worst option, for example, in PNC would be like Sumpworks map. And the problem with Trail of Evidence is it only costs 0 this round. You have a Sumpworks map and I don't have a good unit out. You don't really want to use this yet. I think even with Sumpworks map, you still get some decent value out of this 4 mana 3/5 elusive. And if you had a Mystic Shot, even better, 3/5 that ping something. You're always getting something. The question is, does a 4 mana 3/5 with something, is this good enough for PNC, which usually tries to do more control stuff with like spells and stuff? And can even just run back alley barkeep if you want some random value. I originally might put it higher, but I think the card itself would be playable, and you would not be sad to play. Not really that many. Because it's like all the regions, so you can hit like a Shatter or can't play. Those cards are generally rare. Definitely a fun card, I like it. Okay, and then exciting. And then we have the Violent Dischord. How you? It's not Discord over here.
I would say Discord, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, this is definitely a pun where it's like Discord, which is a word, but they spell Discord like musical chord. Interesting card though.
Yeah. Deal 1 to unit. If you have equipped an ally this game, copy me with the same targets. Some people said it's a better Mystic Shot. No, it's not technically because you can't hit the Nexus, so it's just power grab Mystic Shot. And wow, interesting ratings here. I gave it an 8. Drisoth, you gave it a 6. Leer a 3. Leer, you don't think this card has any home?
I think, well, it's good for Ezreal, right? For leveling Ezreal and stuff, so that's really nice. Yeah, but I personally feel like this is usually a worse Mystic Shot. But probably I'm overlooking that it playing 2 spells is really good, even without Ezreal. Yeah, there are actually a lot of cards, like even for like the PubGap Peddler decks, right? It might be good. So I'm probably overseeing some sick combos.
Yeah. I don't know. My opinion on this is basically like, I think unequivocally this card just in a vacuum is a worse Mystic Shot. It has no reason to ever see play over Mystic Shot, except that like playing 2 spells has some useful synergy. And I'm interested in that synergy. It has a cultist tag, but the card in a vacuum I don't think is very good. It's just like you can play like Shelly into Violent Dischord, immediately triggering Shelly. You can't play, well, you can still play Not Me, but you can't really abuse it as much. But there's reasons to play this card for the synergy effects, but the actual text of the card I'm not very excited about.
So I still like this with the color list. I actually lost to this card once, and the reasoning is because like this will deal 4 damage, because each copy gets boosted separately by the gather list, and you all of a sudden can recover on tempo with mana deal 4, and potentially play this in like a Varus deck. Your Varus then gets plus the quick attack. Your opponent has like a 5/7. They block it, and you double buff your Varus and kill the quick attack guy with Violent Dischord. I think it has some uses, but not over Mystic Shot. Maybe it will be played over, for example, Get Excited or some of the other replacements you put into the deck, like fill it up. Maybe it's just a Time Binder that I also overrated back in the day. Time Binder would be broken, but never saw really play. We'll have to see, but definitely undervalued the copy me with the same targets. I think that's all of the Varus support cards. Let's pull up our overview of the whole full Varus package. And yeah, I'm the highest on it. I think it's a really fun archetype and really pushed, and can be very surprising to face paired with Ionia, and just spam spells and go crazy. You will feel like you're playing Legacy Magic with Delver. You have one guy that you can't kill, just strikes you over and over until you're dead. Varus hits harder than a Delver, and just, yeah, I think the support cards are all quite good. See him being a force in the meta. Leer, you're the opposite spectrum, you don't all. What are your thoughts on Varus?
Yeah, I rated this like as a full package if you really want to make Varus as an archetype work. And I personally think there are some great cards in there, like the Buhru Cultist, I think. Yeah. But I don't see a Varus deck being competitively viable right at the moment. Maybe there will be found some really busted deck, but personally, I think Varus is like the least likely champion I will try or test out when the patch comes out.
Okay, Drisoth, your final words on Varus?
Yeah, I basically completely agree with Leer. I like the cards in Varus's deck. I don't like Varus. I think Varus's best hope is literally that you're allowed to play a single copy in your Kane deck, and you just free roll your Varus. And it's a pretty sad life for a champion to just be like, oh, I guess I draw this card for free, so I'll play it. But um, that's kind of what I expect. So,
well, someone of us will be right. It's a good thing. Exactly one of us will be right. Okay, next champion will be Seraphine. And yeah, one of the most hated champions in League of Legends. In lore, she's now a 2-mana 1/4, so Soothsayer or Obsidian set line. When I'm summoned, create a random new 2-cost spell in hand. The new means the spell that hasn't been played in the game before. And she levels up once you've played 6+ new spells in the game. Just like 6+ different spells. Say that. The level up, she becomes a mini Karma, the same summon condition, and when you play a new spell, it costs 2 or less, copy it with the same targets. Yeah, interesting card, and we all rated really high. I gave it a 7, Leer gave it a 7, Drisoth, you even gave it a 9. Do you think this will become the new Nami?
I think this card is wildly busted and one of the better cards. And I don't remember if I rated anything else on that, but I know I didn't rate anything at 10. So one of the best cards in the expansion. I don't know. This card reads to me like Karma, except modernized and not with a bunch of problems that Karma has. It used to be that like one of the best things to be doing with Karma, and like the last time we had a Karma deck that was really like overtly good. I'm gonna set aside. 4LW has like a spooky Karma deck right now that may or may not be good depending on who you ask. But like the last time there was a Karma deck that actually like put up stats and was overtly good was a Karma Ezreal deck back around Sivir release. And it had a late game plan of put Karma into play, cast Time Trick, double it, find Hexite Crystal off of your like 8 looks at a Hexite Crystal, double Hexite Crystal, and wrath your opponent's board. Seraphine can still do that. Seraphine is just Karma for that effect. All of those cards cost 2 or less, and this can occur on like turn 7, turn 6, unlike Karma needing turn 10. So I'm pretty impressed with this card. The stat line on level 1 is not phenomenal, like 1/4 we've talked about previously. Not an amazing stat line, but it's serviceable. You can play her on turn 2, get some value, try and block some damage, and the level up is incredible. And the level up happens so fast because this is like play 6 spells with different names during the game. Like, it's not a big ask.
Yeah, the reason I didn't give it a 9 was I personally also see this potential, but I am not so sure about this new 2-cost spell because the card needs to be new, so you are not allowed to play Time Trick before leveling her. And that's, I wonder if it's like a big restriction. So I'm just not sure how busted she will be and how difficult it is to play a new spell and copy it.
Yeah. This is definitely like the card that I'm most interested in testing immediately, just because like I also wonder if like can you actually save Time Trick for leveled Seraphine? Because if you can't save Time Trick for leveled Seraphine, this whole like idea starts to fall apart. Because you only get one doubled Time Trick, so you can't just with Karma you got like Time Trick into Time Trick into Time Trick lines, and with Seraphine you don't get that. So
It's going to be really annoying to keep track of it. Spell you already played and spell is still. And maybe this reason I didn't rate it so highly is because it applies to Quietus and simply Broadwing if it gets buffed up. So I don't think it's like Karma where it's just sticking around. The Karma is also in Ionia, but definitely has some high potential. Okay, next one, we have the champion spell and general also normal card. High note, PNC, fast. Deal 2 to a unit. If you've played 6 plus other new spells this game, deal 1 to another unit. One guy and 1 to another version of Verse. Mystic Shot. I have it a 6, Drisoth of a 7, Leer a 5. Leer would tell us something about this card really quick.
I first wanted to say it's a bad Mystic Shot, but then I was like, okay, it can't target face, but it kind of is different because it can also, if you play 6 other new spells, deal 1 to another unit. So it can again work with like Ezreal, targeting 2 different targets. And worst case, it's like a Mystic Shot that can't go face, so it's low risk, I feel like.
Doesn't copy itself, so I think it's worse than the Discord. I gave it like 2 points less. You'll have to see. Copying is really powerful. Is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think these Seraphine decks are pretty okay with a Mystic Shot that can't go face, and this has some upside.
Yeah.
Is it like a phenomenal card? No. Is it fine? Yes. So.
Okay, then one of the Twitter hyped up cards, interested to see your ratings on this one. Acorn, the Hextechnician, 1 mana, 1/1 elusive, PNC. And Nexus Strike, reduce the cost of the most expensive spell in your hand by 1. People have been calling this like the power craft Forge Chief. Incredible and it's up as a card for this guy or girl. And I gave it a 6, Drisoth a 3, and Leer, you gave it a 9. So we have the full spectrum here of average, bad, and good. So Drisoth, why do you think it's bad?
I don't think this card is power crept Forge Chief. I think Forge Chief is a lot better than this card. The main problem that I have with this card is that it says Nexus Strike and it's a 1/1. Where you cannot trade this card off because people will not let you just trade this with their 3/1s, their 2/1s. It's going to be very difficult to get this to trade for a card. And getting a couple of mana off this card just isn't that impressive to me.
Okay, Leer, what is your counterpoint?
Well, I mean, Shimon Wind also can get easily traded away, and it still sees a lot of play. So maybe I'm getting baited by this card, but I feel like being able to cast your you probably don't play it with Feel the Rush, but with like Ruination for 1 mana less, your Vengeance for 1 mana less, it can be really sick. And even if you discount like not a high cost spell, it still saves you 1 mana. So I don't know. I like this card. I feel it's really strong, but maybe Drizoth is right and it's kind of bait, but it seems really strong actually. It allows for some dumb combos.
I'm in the middle. I think it's
The
fine.
comparison.
Okay, go ahead.
The comparison with Shimon's Wind, I think, is like a fair one. My problem is like, I think Shimon, like Vistine Disciple, I think Vistine Disciple gives you considerably more advantage on connecting with the Nexus than Acorn. Acorn gives you any mana on a card that is going to be clunky and expensive and difficult to get out of your hand, while Vistine Disciple gives you like an actual card immediately. So like the use cases, there's a pretty frequent situation where you play Vistine Disciple in 1, you hit them for 1, and then you just immediately trade it off, or just block to save life, where you like throw it in front of a Legion rear guard or something. And when that happens with Vistine Disciple, I feel like reasonably ahead because I've drawn a card, I've somewhat stabilized. Whereas if that happens with Acorn, I feel pretty bad, where I've gotten 1 mana discount on something that probably is never going to matter. And it just can't trade with stuff. But I mean, like ramping out a Field of Rush is pretty impressive. I just don't know what like P&Z for your deck is playing Acorn and Field of Rush. So
yeah, I wonder how good it is with timelines and Buried in Ice. That's also like.
Look at this crazy combo. You can make your timelines cost 1 again. Never changed.
wow.
Well, but then you can only play it on turn 2 anyways, right? Because on round 1 you also already played Acorn.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm in the middle, like I said, you can block a Zoe, you can get some mana discount, but if it was an Aeonic card, I would be much higher on it. We'll have to see how good it actually is. How good for. Okay, Inspired Plans, 2 mana equipment, +1/+1, and attack, create a new 2-cost spell in hand and give it fleeting. Every attack, whenever. I gave it an 8.
Oh, you think it's really good?
Yeah, I think it's really good. Because it just means you never run out of cards. You can play this quick style of drawing a bunch of cards, putting a bunch of low value cards into your deck, and it's really hard to kill an equipment. You will just like play a random guy and then draw a card, and then you play another random guy, then another card, and you will just use all of your engines and gives you a bunch of random cards your opponent can play around. Pain to deal with. Your opponent just gets a quick attack or something off of this real attack. I think it's a really good value engine. Leer, what don't you like about it?
Well, when I first looked at it, I gave it a 7 initially, but then I realized it only draws you a spell when you attack. So it effectively, and it has fleeting, so effectively the card you draw, you can only use in 1/4 of a round or in the game, because you can only play it after you attacked on your own turn. So I feel like this is very limiting for the card you draw, and that's why I rated it down.
Anything you want to add, Drisoth?
Like it's a reasonable value engine. It's probably a serviceable equipment in PNZ. I'm not super excited about it, but I think decks at this point in like modern Runeterra just should be playing equipments at this point because they clearly want you to play equipments. They give you payoffs for it, and it's serviceable. I'm not excited about it, but it's a serviceable equipment in PNZ. So
Maybe 8 is a little bit high. Yeah. Okay, Fanclub President is next. 4 mana, 2/2 in PNC, and play manifest a spell that costs 5 and set its cost 2. Just another split. I'm at 4, Drisoth is at 6, and Leer is at 8. So my reasoning for putting it at 4 is because it only generates a spell that costs 5. And those, there's a very, in random card generation, is very strict pool of cards. We have 1, 2, 3 that basically everybody generates. We have the 6+ that everybody generates. Then you have the special effects that shouldn't be randomly generated. That's 5 and 4. A bunch of random cards you have never seen played before, like Storm of the Blades, cost 5 mana. And you have just all of these really situational effects that you can roll off this guy. Because of the 5 mana spell pool being so bad, I rated this card only at a 4. There you gave it an 8.
Yeah, your point is kind of funny because when I saw this card, I looked up what 5 cost cards there are, and there were some pretty decent ones, like a lot of stuns and other stuff. I don't know the names of all these 5 cost cards that nobody ever played. But I feel like it definitely well, maybe I'm overrating this card. Maybe if you like see 3 bad cards in Manifest, this card is trash. But I feel like there are definitely a lot of decent options, and that's why I just think that yeah, being able to play a 5-cost spell for 2 is really good. And the 2/2 body is nice to have, I suppose. I feel like this card has a lot of potential, but maybe the low rolls will be too bad to play this card actually.
I mean, you're still playing for the mana. You're playing a 2/2, which is like 1.5 mana worth, and you're getting 3 mana off of the spell you play. Like, not spell. Drisoth, anything you want to add?
yeah, I think this card is okay. I mean, like I obviously have the mid ranking between the two of you.
Yeah.
I think it's okay. I think it'll usually find you a usable card. Of the like, I think this card, like what Riot was expecting you to do with this card is kind of use it with a level 2 Seraphine, double up some 5-cost spell, and get like a significant advantage out of that, where it's like star shaping or I don't know, like Eye of Nagakaboros. There's like these cards that will like get you a significant advantage if they get doubled up. I don't know how reliable that is, so what I think this card is mostly going to be is like give you a 2/2 that gives you a rebate later on, where like you get a slightly powerful spell kind of later on in the game. It's unexciting to me, but it seems serviceable, so I gave it a 6.
Yeah. Next, we have Champunk Shredder. No, just kidding. It's the Zaun Diva. 8 mana, 7/5, play. This should be a skill. Deal 1 to all enemies. If you've played 6+ new spells this game, deal 3 instead. Have the skill over here, Fatal or. Yeah, I gave it a 3. Leer also gave it a 3. Nice. Drisoth, you gave it an 8.
I did.
What do you like about this?
So I'm gonna just tell you, when I read this card does not stand out as strong to me. But I have so frequently had this problem where there is this card in different forms. We've seen Karina Varaza, we've seen Des and Ada most commonly, would be the more recent one, in 2 different decks, in this like Vagar Nora deck and in Sentinel Control, back when Skathis first made Sentinel Control. These just like big chunky bodies that do a good chunk of damage to your opponent's board have like stood out to me as consistently overperforming what I thought. And so I was like, this card looks like a pretty good version of that effect. These big chunky bodies that do damage to everything on my opponent's side of the board. So I think this one's going to have the exact same cycle. I would not be surprised to see Skathis playing Sentinel Control with this card as a 2 to 3 of day 1. But it doesn't read super strong to me, but I've seen this card before.
What do you like about it better than Karina Varaza?
That's 1 mana less, and I think Karina is just like 1 too much mana at this point.
Because like it doesn't hit the Nexus. That's the problem. Play a lot of Sentinel Control, and sometimes you just want this little bit of extra damage that Karina. Like so, it's pretty consistent if you play like a 2-cost spell deck. But if you play Sentinels, are you going to change up your spells? Be more different just to play this card?
I think 6+ new spells by turn 8 is like just something decks will achieve. But you go like Vile Feast, Mystic Shot. They're playing a couple of Quietus now. They play some Glimpse Beyonds. It's not 6+ cheap spells. So like even when you start getting into like Shock Blasts, Hexbliterators, which might be in that deck, although that doesn't slay, I think, so they probably don't play that one. Tellstones is 2, or if you go like Piltover Tellstone into Aftershock, that's 2 spells. I don't know. I think this card is just essentially always going to be active when you need it to be, and these effects have overperformed for me. So
I think
this is actually oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I also like literally thought the same that as Collinson, that why would we play this over Karina? But yeah, the 1 mana point is fair, and also like Des and Ada. I lost some games to Des and Ada, so I definitely see this argument that the card might be better than it looks. So actually now, after hearing like Drizzle's explanation, maybe this card is actually playable.
I'm also giving it the playable, maybe it's a one-off, but I don't think we'll bring back the 3/3 split Sentinel Control where we play 3 Ledros, winner, and that's winner for Zaun Diva. Maybe it's a one-off. I'm giving it. Okay, Crowd Pleaser, 2 mana burst. Give an ally +2/+0 and quick attack this round. Flow, create a new 2-cost spell. And you don't know what flow is? If you played 2 spells or skills last round, then you get the extra bonus effect. And yeah, we all say 5, 5, and 6. Average card. Yeah, what do you think? Some quick explanation why this is.
I think there's a similar card that gives like +4 and 0 and quick attack. I don't know how it's called.
I think Spellforce.
Yeah, right, and that's 1 mana more. So I feel like even if you don't activate Flow, it will definitely still be a usable spell, and also something that your opponent, if they know you run it, they have to play around it. So I think even without Flow, it's probably playable, even if you wouldn't main deck it if it doesn't have the effect. Yeah, I just think this is a very solid card, to be honest.
Solid card. Let's move on. Drum solo. Next. 5 mana burst. And PNC. Draw 2, flow, reduce those cards' cost by 2. Oh wow, I'm the lowest here. I gave it a 5. We both think it's an 8. I don't think, like, my reason is I don't think that. Oh, wait. I misread this card, okay. I read flow reduce my cost by 2. So that it costs 3 when you have flow, but it actually reduces those cards' costs by 2. Okay, like. I would give it also an 8 now. Like, I totally misread the card. I thought it would just be another, like, a cheaper when you fulfill this condition, but this reminds me of Skull of Gul'dan. Hearthstone players over here. I think this card is broken. Yeah, Drisoth, do you want to explain why this card?
So I was actually expecting to rate it an 8 and have the lowest rating of all of us. I think this card is a little overrated by the community. The community definitely thinks this card is like wildly, wildly broken. And one of these problems with like these expensive draw 2s with some gravy is getting the chain started. And this card has this problem that like Eye of Nagakoboros like catches you up on board a little bit. It gives you a 2/2 for your trouble. Stuff like Deep Meditation gets cheaper. It's easier to get this kind of chain rolling with your card draw with these types of cards because they take less of a tempo loss when you first cast them. That said, once you get the chain rolling with Drum Solo, it's incredible. So I think this card is insane. I just think the community is a little bit overeager on this card. But I definitely think this card is good.
Or they just can't read like me. All an 8. Full on board with this. And then we have Camouflage Horror. 7 mana, 5/3. Fearsome and evolve in Shurima. Play as a skill. I strike an enemy. And yeah, really interesting card. We also have the skill over here. Beat the Void. We see a poor guy getting eaten up by the Void. And what we.
I actually can't find.
Oh wait, it's not. It's not the Seraphine support anymore. We don't find it. Yeah, I think we covered all of the Seraphine. Let's talk about this guy later. I thought it was. Let's talk about Seraphine full package. We all gave it a 7, interestingly enough. And yeah, I think like if you play all of the cards together, I give Seraphine himself or herself a 7, and the cards seem like balanced. They don't seem like broken, and you can't act with them. You can't play around them. They just seem like weaker or changed versions of existing cards that fit better with Seraphine. Gave it a 7 as a valid archetype, but not. Yeah, what do you think?
I totally agree. I think Seraphine herself is strong, and the cards herself also in a vacuum are strong, and they just also work together. So maybe they might even become more than the sum of their parts and be like really broken. But that's something you can only find out after testing the deck. So I think that just from the power level of the cards, it's a really potent archetype.
Drisoth, the final words on Seraphine.
I mean, I think Seraphine's strong. Obviously, I gave her a 9. I think her cards are relatively strong, but nothing stands out to me as overtly broken. So,
okay, then we have our last champion to cover. It's Varus.
You mean Vayne?
Vayne, yes.
Vayne is our next one. I don't know if this one's refreshed with the cards from today.
Hope so. Got it there. So yes. Up. See if I can know what it does. Vayne is a 3 mana 3/4 in here that when you summon him or Vayne, when I'm summoned or round start, create a tumble in hand, or if you have one, use its cost by 1. Tumble is, of course, this spell. Equip an ally with an equipment in hand, it costs 2 or less. It starts a free attack. Just a basically cataclysm without a challenge, giving you these free attacks. If I've seen you attack 4 times, Vayne levels up, and she creates a 0-cost tumble, 0-cost free attack. And champion spell is Condemn. We'll talk about that one later. I'm really happy about this one. So are you. Gave it an 8, Drisoth an 8, yeah, a 9. You know, I basically play 3 decks all the time. Tarek Poppy Rally and then Scouts. Some other decks like Sentinels or Control. But this will, I think, will replace Quinn in Scouts. Or at least go alongside Quinn and forming new Scouts. Out Bilgewater. Really hyped about this. Solid set line. Anything you want to add? Start with Drisoth.
I think Vayne's very good. She's like an actually exciting Demacia champion. You mentioned Tumble as like a cataclysm without the challenge. I actually think the equipping something for free is a big part of its power. There's some cards that we haven't talked about and kind of have. There's these like Darkin equipments that give you reasonable value on attack. The one that comes most to mind here is the Harpoon, which is Bilgewater. Which like if you tumble with this card, you put the Harpoon into play attacking and will draw a card on the next turn. It's down there. So stuff like that is really compelling to me. You can get more attacks out of it. It's obviously good with Misfortune. I don't know. Vayne just seems very impressive as a card. She has a strong level up with good payoff. The one like concern I have about Vayne is I wonder how much she is. If she is going in an already good deck that has a champion that's good with that deck, what comes to mind is Scouts with Quinn. Is Vayne better than Quinn? I think so. But if she's replacing Quinn, who's already good, the value above Quinn just isn't really there. And I wonder if Vayne is like going to be a massive improvement to Scouts or just like a minor improvement to Scouts. But I think Vayne's good.
Yeah.
Card is quite strong to me.
You can also cheat out the Darkin Halberd. You can equip this without killing an ally. Your eyes.
Yeah, it was in the reveal video, right? Personally.
Yeah, go ahead, Leer.
Personally, I'm not so sure if Scouts is the real archetype she should go in or can go in. I think that with Fated, she will be really good. I personally I'm not even sure if you play like Vayne as a 3-off, maybe just as a 1-off or 2-off for like this free tumble effect. But she targets a unit which activates Fated. She also lets you use equipments, and in Fated you run equipments plenty anyways. So I feel like Vayne just fits perfectly into Fated, and to right now, like Pantheon, you want to pair a Pantheon with Demacia anyways, and he is kind of still looking for a really good second partner, right? Because Fiora is cool, but not game breaking. Some people even played Tarek over Fiora, and there's also Yuumi Pantheon, and people just don't seem so sure which champion you should play with Pantheon. And I feel like Vayne is just a really good choice now.
Okay. Let's just move on with these cards in order here. We have Condemn. This is the champion spell, 6 mana, fast. If you've attacked 2+ times this round, so it would be a Scout attack, a rally, even like a Blade Dance, I cost 5 less, so 1 mana, and then an ally strikes an enemy, normally costs 6 mana. Oh, you don't like that. And so it's a one-sided strike, similar to, not really that common in one-sided strike basically. But I gave it an 8, Joseph gave it a 6, David gave it a 4. think this condition is very, very easy to fulfill in certain decks, and those are the decks that usually lack interaction. Like Poppy, like the Scouts, those are very tight on mana, and they would really like to have an ally strikes an enemy type of effect. You pull off the rallies, it's you're kind of winning anyways, but I think it's still really high value.
Yeah, but I personally feel like you have to attack 2 times and then you cast it. I mean, if there's an enemy Viego on the deck on the board and you want to remove him, you don't want to attack first 2 times into him after you remove him. So I feel like go on.
The timing is what doesn't make sense to me, where it's like, after I've attacked 2 times, do I really want to be playing removal? I feel like I want to be removing stuff and then attacking 2 times. So the timing just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I think this card's an excellent champ spell. I know we're not supposed to rate on that, but like as a champ spell, I think this card is excellent. As like an actual main deck card, I think this card is very mediocre. It's good when the condition is met, and I think it's like pretty good at defending you in combat of the second swing. But like that's kind of a narrow situation to be talking about, where like specifically while you were attacking the second time. So.
I don't think it's that narrow. Like I planned attack with Scouts 3 times during turns. Like you do normal attack, then you rally, then you do the Scout attack, then you do another normal attack. Then you can have like 2 combats where you use this Condemn out of these 3. And it's a pretty common situation. You just have a board advantage, you open, then you do rally, and then Scout attack, and then you play this card in the Scout attack. Then you can normal attack up. And like you said, it also works during the second attack. Once you committed your attack, your opponent blocks, then you can still put the 1-mana Condemn on the stack, because once it's your attacks, you can use it to manipulate the second combat. You can just sacrifice your Veiler or something as a Scout attack, and use Condemn in your real attack.
Isn't it like Vayne's in League of Legends? Isn't this the spell where she pushes an enemy into the wall and stuns it?
Yeah.
Maybe they should print stun on it after you attack 2 times.
Wouldn't be that great. It's a Demacia stun. Okay, I think we've covered this card. Let's just move on with the top here. Widowed Huntress is next. 4-mana, 3/3. Play, equip me with an equipment that costs 2 or less. And yeah, kind of even 6, 5, and 3 here. Average of 5. And the highest card this reminds me of is actually not really played at all. Brutal Hunter. This guy was really, really good in expeditions. You just like play this on 4, and then you challenge a random guy, you get a card advantage. And I see this happening with this guy as girl as well. Just play her, and then you have like the quick attack equipment, the tough equipment, whatever, and then you just kill a guy for free and still have a unit left over. But it's not like game breaking. You still need an equipment, you still need a good challenge. Tech token on 4. It's way worse later on. It's like okay. Yeah, you say only a 3.
Yeah, I totally agree that this is not broken in any kind, and it also doesn't really work with any other like card together for like a combo or something. So I just think that this card, it doesn't have good synergies, and as a standalone, it's not very strong, and that's why I rated it at 3. I personally don't think this card will be played.
Yeah, both sides. And yeah, I think we covered that as well. Kind-hearted Recruit. Next, 5-mana, 5/5. When I'm summoned, give equipped allies barrier this round. Both of you are the highest here with a 7. We both have it at a 5. 5-mana, 5/5, rated a 5. Yeah, what do you like about this one?
I think this card is not particularly good in a Vayne deck. I think this card is very exciting in something like a Jax deck, because Jax like ends up in situations where you've got like 4 or 5 equipped units in play, and you just play this, and it's like a 5-mana Bright Steel formation where it just says like, you are losing every combat this turn. I just going to play this now. The Jax deck might also be a Vayne deck, but I don't think this card is going to be good in like the Vayne Scouts or Vayne Pantheon that the two of you are kind of envisioning. I do think this card is good elsewhere.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think like there are some possible combos that are really strong. I gave it a 5 because I didn't like I felt like this card can be really strong, but I just didn't immediately see a strong deck where it fits in. But maybe Jax is that deck, and maybe Jax will be good after this patch.
As we go through the Jax package, I think not Jax, the Vayne package, a bit of a Freudian slip. As we go through the Vayne package, I think this is going to come up again and again, where I'm just going to say, like, I don't think this card is very good in Vayne, but I think this card actually is good in Jax. I think we have a Jax deck now, whereas, like, previously there wasn't really a Jax deck. They all sucked. So
I think this is also supposed to work with Jax because of the that she like tries a lot and then. What I don't like about this card is that there's just so many 5-drop Demacia cards you could play. This is kind of similar to the other guy where you have like the Overwhelm. If you equipped Allies Overwhelm, you have to have a white board of Allies, you have to maybe using this barrier. Not to ask what. Definitely rather play the equipment we will see later, the Demacia Darkin one. Also costs 5 mana. Just a better card overall. We have to see. That is right. Zealous Ranger Knight. Next 2 mana, 2/3. Demacia, attack, give equipped allies +1/+1 this round. And yeah, something to mention about this card is that if you attack multiple times in the turn, then you of course keep this +1/+1 for each of these attacks. Give this guy like Scout, and then you attack with Scout, and then you rally, give him all of your guys +3/+. That's why I gave it a 6. I think there's some combo potential. Drisoth, you gave it a 7. Anything else you
once
see?
again, interested in a Jax deck.
Nice. Okay, Leer, you don't like it? Anything?
To be honest, the Vayne package, I rated it like 5 minutes before the podcast, so I didn't think too thoroughly about the combos. I think
fine.
that, yeah, in the Jax deck, it seems really good because you will buff like 4 other units, and then it's really nice. I don't even think that you need to necessarily rely on ready effects to get like double or 3 times this buff. It can already be good with like 1 buff because it's a 2 mana, 2 cost card, and it has a 2/3 stat line. So even if you only happen to buff like 1 or 2 units, it's already worth its cost.
Okay. Next, we have some finisher, quote unquote, the epic card of the set. Epic's already unplayable. Zaun, don't put epics into a deck. 6 mana, 6/4, Bloodcursed Harpy in Demacia. Scout, play equipment with equipment that costs 2 less from hand. And then Rudamir, surprise. The first time I would die while equipped, fully heal me and destroy the equipment instead. So to notice is that this only works once for the whole card. So you can't just like put another equipment on it and get the shield again. It only works once for the whole card. I'm like 97% sure of the way it's worded. And that's why I gave it a 5, like just play Genevieve.
Yeah, my opinion is kind of similar. I feel like Genevieve is probably just better, although admittedly, like this card has so much text on it that I have a hard time being confident that Genevieve is better. Or it's like, I mean, it's a 6/4. You could probably like maybe you can get the fish-a-whack, the overwhelm improvised weapon. That sounds pretty good. It's hard to kill, but like, I don't know. This card is really hard to evaluate. So
Yeah, I felt like if you get Fish Awake on it, it's really good because it pushes a lot of damage and it has Scout and it comes back when it dies. I feel like this card probably, and it's 6 mana, right? If it would like be an 8 mana, 8/6 or something, probably not that great. But for 6 mana, it's like absolutely playable. I feel like this card can definitely see some play.
Yeah, maybe in like a Jax deck, but out or something. It's the eternal debate: do you play Genevieve or do you play Cytheria Gold? I don't think this card is bad. Maybe I'm wrong, but
Yeah, but you play like Cytheria and Genevieve in Scouts, right? And no
Yeah.
other deck. But Bloodcursed Harpy, I feel like you can play it without Scouts, just in another deck.
Like,
As a
like
standalone
Faded, for
card, it's
example.
already good.
Imagine Faded having like a 6-drop that synergizes with the archetype. I don't know. Faded really wants the expensive cards. Where do you see it? Like, just checks.
Oh, I haven't deeply thought about in what deck you want to play it. I just feel like in any deck it could be really good.
Okay, let's move on. 1 mana, Steadfast Elkin. The Reddit post about it. Power crept through the cloud field, but not an elite, so it's fine. The first time I see an ally equipped, grant me tough. So this means that if you play it, you have another ally that's already equipped, it gets tough, or if you play it and later put an equipment on any ally, like even itself, will also get tough permanently. Equipment is destroyed or whatever. Stays a tough. And yeah, I gave it a 7. Fine. Deadline, I think. Drisoth, you also gave it an 8. Do you think this is better than, like, where do you see this card being played? Just in checks again, or?
I'm gonna say Jax. I'm gonna say Jax a lot in this section, but I think this card is really good in any deck that can follow it up with a 2 mana, like on turn 2, either equip it or what's it called? Either equip it or like play something that auto equips. So if you can play like Ionian Hookmaster, if you can play Jax, if you can play the Darkin Bloodletters on this card, I mean, like 3/2 tough on turn 2 is a pretty good situation to be in. So I also like, as I talked earlier with the Buhru Cultist, I think like 1 mana 2/2s just don't need a whole lot for me to be excited about them. And this has enough for me to be excited about. So,
I think a Demacia 1 mana 2/2 is like less valuable. We had like the Penitent Squire. Oh, some clay. Much. Leer, you don't like it at all. It's 4.
Yeah, actually, I totally agree with you guys that this card can be really good. Like, it has good stats. I just don't see a Demacia deck playing it, because most of the Demacia decks already have access to cool 1-drops, like the birds that can challenge, and also Penitent Squire and stuff. Right, Fleet Tracker. And I just feel like it is another anti-aggro card for Demacia, but Demacia doesn't really. It already, a lot of Demacian decks could already include good 1-drops if they wanted to, and they just don't. But maybe it's like a good one-time Sega Seeker where you can put an equipment on it, like let it improvise, and then it's a really strong unit like on the get-go, but it just doesn't continue growing. So I think this is just low value, and that's why I think that Demacia won't play it a lot. But maybe a Jax Demacia deck, right? I didn't think about that.
Yeah, maybe. Next, Faithful Wolfdog. Wolf. If an ally died this round, so 3 mana 2/3, that line would not be amazing, but if an ally died this round, I cost 2 less, so it turns into a 1 mana 2/3, and also has the play equipment with an equipment that costs 2 or less from hand. Laws. Like 1 mana 2/3, that's kinda good. Also, like, carries the blade earlier to be rotated out of format. Yeah. I give it the similar ratings again, 7, 8, and 3. So Drisoth, just want to put it in checks again, I guess.
I do want to put it in Jax. I think this card has like uses elsewhere, not in Faded, if Faded is a thing, because your units just don't die very much.
Yeah.
But in decks where like you're gonna have equipment hanging around and your stuff dies. So like you could think like Auction Sipper with Bloodletters, where like if they kill something with Bloodletters, you could just play Watchdog or Wolfdog. I don't know. It's Wolfdog, right? Anyways, you play Wolfdog, you put an equipment into play, and you get some value off your. It gives you like a pretty good mana rebate if you're putting a 2 mana equipment into play. So maybe Darkin Bloodletters isn't the best example, but I'm pretty interested in this card. So
I can see it too in like maybe even a Demacia Shadow Isles Fusion or something.
yeah, Harpoon actually sounds incredible with this card, where like something dies and you just put a 4/5 into play for 1 mana.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need to make it work like with these two regions, right? But what I don't like about this card is it's super low value. You already have to have a unit that dies. So you only play it like at round 3 or maybe. And then, oh, do you really care? Like on round 3, you're not that interested in playing a 1 mana unit, if that makes sense. So it's like you're emptying your hand really quickly if you play this card. And then you also already need to have an equipment in hand that you can play. It's just, I don't know. I think this is just too low value and comes into play when you don't really want it, unless you play like a swarm deck that doesn't have a good finisher or that tries to finish the game at round 6 or something. Um, yeah, that's why I gave it a 3. I don't, even in like Jax Demacia decks, I find it hard to include it, but maybe.
Yeah, but like you play on turn 2, deck token, and you play, oh god, the 1 mana equip guy, how's he called? 1 mana improvise guy.
Aerith.
What?
It's an F.
F-I-R-F-I, here. This guy, and then you attack with him, you get the equipment,
He's a guy.
and then on turn 2, play this guy 2-3, and he's like 5-5, can't block, turn 2.
Yeah, the unit has to die first, right? It's this round, so.
Like you play this, you attack with him, and
Yeah,
You
but
can't
that's
attack
so
with Wolfdog.
specific.
Like,
yeah.
I don't know. I like this card in Jax, and I think it's like not unreasonable for it to pick up like Darkin Harpoons, which at some point we'll talk about.
Yeah.
But I don't think this card is like every Demacia deck ever. I
Yeah.
think it's pretty good in these equipment Demacia decks, but not everything.
Last card for Vayne, Fish Fight. An ally and an enemy strike each other, so just single combat at slow. Or an equipped ally strikes an enemy, then is unequipped. I assume that then is unequipped means that the equipment returns to your hand and is destroyed.
Probably, right?
Yeah. Oh,
I think we saw this in the reveal, and it goes back to the hand.
we have our first 1 here with Leer giving it a 1. Me at 7 and Drisoth at Leer. But you give it a 1.
I think this card is really bad. Maybe if it was in a different region, like in Shurima, we can see like Aksham Pantheon playing these 3 mana, like the Desert Duel, 3 mana, yeah, and they strike each other. But in Demacia, if you can play single combat, I think that playing a slow speed strike spell is just. I can't imagine ever playing this card, to be honest. I think this is just really bad at slow speed. If it was fast speed, then maybe, but at slow speed, I think it's just unplayable.
I think I agree with what you're saying because I think the ally and enemy strike each other is like an unplayable mode. Like that mode of this card is horrific and should never be in your deck.
Yeah.
The equipped ally strikes an enemy I'm excited about, and it's important to know there's only one fast speed way to kill an equipment. So like, if you pick that mode and your opponent isn't playing specifically Noxus, they cannot stop it from happening without like killing the unit or some way that you didn't actually have the ability to deal with.
I mean, they can play a Senna and then have a fast speed quietist.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah. Senna, fast speed Quietus, Senna, fast speed heavy metal. There's a couple of options with Senna.
Yeah.
In terms of natural ways to fast speed unequip a unit, it is only it's like on the next row, but it's a 3 mana Noxus, like single combat that blows up an equipment.
That's guy. Yeah. I also think you just played for the equipped ally strike, and specifically in Fiora. I think with Fiora you just play your Fiora out, you attack with her. Then if your opponent like really wants to interact with you, sure, you signal combat. But if they don't want to interact with you, go to the next turn, then you always have this 2 mana strike and have a backup equip Fiora first with some random equipment. Then you have always the backup of I put the strike on this deck as a first action, and then if you try to kill my Fiora, I react to it with barrier, with whatever, because I only paid 2 mana, not 5 mana for my one-sided strike. I really see the home of this card. Of course, the other mode is just unplayable. Like, never want to play.
I mean, if you put Fish Fight in your deck for the other mode, you will play the single combat mode. But if you are putting Fish Fight in your deck as a strike spell, like play single combat, play Strafing Strike. I don't know. I see this more like competing with something like Furious Wielder than single combat.
Yeah, okay. And then we can move on to the full Varus set. And hey, you didn't put a rating in. Make one up. I gave it a 7.
Oh, I actually okay.
Fine. I gave it a 7. I think she will be decent. Not sure if like this for the whole support. I think they definitely will find a home. All of these support cards seem situational. I didn't consider checks. That makes a lot of sense with price, so maybe it would be up to an 8. Yeah. Whereas Vayne good, and the rest is okay. Drisoth.
I think Vayne is good, and I think her support is good. I don't know if Vayne plays her support, but I think Vayne is good, and I think her support is good.
Nice.
Yeah, that's actually also my argument, actually. And that's why I gave it a 3, because I don't think that Vayne's package works well with her. But Vayne is really good, like the Harpy is really good. But I don't feel like the cards work with each other as well as they probably are intended to be. And that's why I actually agree that some cards are really strong, but they don't synergize so well with Vayne, and that's my reasoning behind only giving it a 3.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. To finish it up, we have some more random cards to talk about. Let's push those, wrap it up. And the first one, if artworks load up here again, is the one we talked about. This is Darkin Harpoon, one of the more exciting ones, I think. Darkin Harpoon, 2 mana, 1 +1/+0 equipment, gives fearsome, and on attack, draw 1 at the next round start and give it fleeting. It's in Bilgewater. Bilgewater fearsome is kind of rare. And you may spend 9 mana to play me as Ibargos. And Ibargos is 9 mana Darkin, 0/0. So if you hush this one, it dies. And I have +1/+1 for each card you've drawn this game. Can only be blocked by enemies with 4 or more power, so it has super fearsome. Yeah.
I actually love how you just put in, if you hush it, it dies.
Yeah, it's like, it's a thing. Do we have our ratings?
We don't have it in this mode, unfortunately.
Okay. Can you tell us the ratings?
Well, I see my rating. I personally only rated it a 6. I wrote as a note, it seems good, but I don't know what to combat with. Yeah, I have not thought too deeply about how this card can be greatly comboed, but probably with this putting it into play for free, with cards that put it into play for free, or auto equip it to themselves. Maybe there's a combo there. But yeah, I am not that experienced with Bilgewater decks that want to draw fleeting cards. So I just lack creativity to find an archetype to put it into. But maybe Drizzles, you have more experience with these kind of archetypes, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I have experience with the decks that I think this is going to go into, but I think this card is pretty strong. I rated it a 7. I almost wish I had rated it an 8. I think this goes in like small unit Bilgewater aggro really, really well. You can play this on like Shell Shocker. It's pretty difficult to block. And having a bunch of cheap units allows you to like make use of the fleeting cards, where like if you draw Shell Shocker on turn 3, no big deal. You can play a Shell Shocker on turn 3. So Ibargos, I am pretty uninterested in. I think the 9 mana side is whatever, but Darkin Harpoon, I'm very, very interested in.
To be honest, I love the design of these Darkin weapons, that they have a second phase, like playing as him as a really strong unit. I also agree with you that Ibarros seems unexciting, but I just love this design, and a lot of cards, like the Lodestone, for example, or the Bloodletters, they just are good as weapons, but
Yeah.
actually the second phase becomes extremely valuable and oftentimes win you the game, and that's why you want to even run 3 copies of them.
Yeah, it's relevant. I think you would never like if Ibaros was an actual card. I think you would never play Ibaros.
Yeah.
But as this like option from your Darkin Harpoon, you will play Ibaros because you like reach these late games and you're like, oh yeah, sure, I'll take a 15-15. That sounds fine. So
I agree. I think it's similar to the other card we saw before, that you can just put it on a random guy and draw a card. And I also love these flip effect cards. The cards having two sides is what really drew me to Runeterra before. Champions, and I can find really. For our thing here, we just have the numbers over here. It doesn't work for the overlay for whatever reason. Just have to read it out for you. Sorry if it's a little bit on screen. Okay, I gave it an 8, Leer a 4, Drisoth a 7. Next card is Test of Spirit, and this one is a Bilgewater card, 1 mana focus, and is given enemy vulnerable this round. If it dies this round, deal 1 to the enemy nexus. I give it a 4, I gave it a 6, and this of you gave it a 3. Yeah, Leer, how do you see this card?
Well, I think it's great if you generally if you randomly generate it, but we shouldn't evaluate your card by that. So I think as a one-off, it's probably pretty cool. It's like focus speed, so the vulnerable is actually nice. Not sure if you would. I mean, you don't usually play the 1 mana slow speed spell that I think you've been warned. That makes one vulnerable and then lets you draw a card. But for that, you get the focus speed. So I imagine you could see this play as a one-off. Maybe in Plunder, it's cool. I just like that this card is really, it's flexible. I think it's I don't think it's dead to have in your hand, but I'm not sure if it's good enough to include into or into for main decking it in your deck. But I like the design, to be honest.
I think you only will see it with Wiggly Burblefish creating it. Maybe by one off.
I think this card is like obviously a very good Burblefish hit. Most of the vulnerable cards are like premium Burblefish hits between Test of Spirit, Shakedown, and EB Warned we already looked at. I just don't see this card main deck. I mean, we've basically only seen Shakedown in Star Spring decks. We've seen EB Warned main deck only in Alawi Bard, like 3 metas ago, I think. If we still had Alawi Bard, I think they would be interested in Test of Spirit, but since that deck doesn't exist, I don't know if we're ever going to see a deck that wants this type of thing again. So.
What I find really sad is that they give Ilavi all of these vulnerable cards, like you can grab somebody and you can take him around, but in League of Legends you can't grab anybody. Kind of flow. Anyways, let's move on to Skrappy's Partsapalooza, a 2-mana landmark in Battle City. When I'm discarded, summon me. When you summon a Mecha Yordle, grant it a random keyword. Obviously, you want to discard this for your Mecha Yordle generators, and then have it in play and buff up all of your Mecha Yordles. I gave it a 5 Mecha Yordle card, so not going to be viable. There you gave it a 7, Drisoth you gave it a 4. Yeah, do you think this will make Mecha Yordles viable or special use?
Yeah, I was wondering, when I evaluated this, at first sight I was like, yeah, this is really good. Then I was like, but Mecha Yordles aren't really played. But then Rumble is a Mecha Yordle, and Rumble Banner City, well, it's not like an A-tier deck, but it's a deck. And I feel like a random keyword can be pretty nice. And it's easy to discard this card, so yeah. I think this card on its own is really good, but probably the Mecha Yordle package around it is not good enough. But as a standalone card, I think it's pretty solid. That's why I gave this card alone a 7.
How do you play this like alone without Mecha Yordle? What does it do?
Yeah, no, I mean like if Mecha Yordles were good, then it would be a great like.
Okay.
I rated it as an isolated card, not as rating it down because Mecha Yordles aren't a thing. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes
I
sense.
think like a random keyword can be pretty good.
I think in the end we then all agree that it's like Mecha Yordle was good. It would.
Yeah, I basically agree. I think this card is a very good for Mecha Yordles card. It's just Mecha Yordles suck, so I don't think it's gonna do anything.
Nice. Okay, we agree. Move on to Fracture. More interesting discussion here. Deal 1 to everything or destroy a unit's equipment. 2 mana, slow, Ice Shard in Freljord. I gave it a 5. I'm in the middle. Does it much? I think it's fine. Leer, you gave it a 3. You know home for this?
Well, it's like a slow speed ice shard for less mana. I personally feel like it's a lazy way to do like destroy units equipment. You have like equipment cards, so you need to have a way to destroy them. But I think it sucks to main deck a card that destroys an equipment. Like Quietus works, but Quietus was like extremely hyped because of its other effect to kill like a unit with 2 or less attack. So, and I don't think that Fracture has the same kind of power for its other modes that doesn't destroy units equipment. So, I think this card sucks.
Drisoth, counterpoint.
I think in this upcoming meta, you are going to just have to play cards that destroy equipments because it is going to be a large part of this meta is playing equipments and destroying equipments. And Fracture has a passable other mode and destroys an equipment, and that's really all I'm looking for.
I really like these equipments, like these specific effects that come with other specific effects. Like you would not want just destroy units equipment because if you face a non-equipment deck, it's just a dead card in your hand. And similarly, deal 1 to everything. Sometimes also a dead card in your hand if you play like a control deck versus something that has a lot of generation units, whatever, tough units. And just having these 2 modes means that your modal card or your situational card is better in more situations. I like the general design of it. And if we wouldn't have any ways to destroy units equipment, we would just, it should be very uninteractive. Right, learn this lesson from the landmark thingy where they don't print sunk costs anymore. Like literally one region can't deal with landmarks and region's identity now. I like it more when they give everybody a cheap version. I think it's okay as a design. Okay, Warden of the Tribes is next. Fan favorite. What? Another one. Let's read it. 9 mana, 6/6 Overwhelm in Freljord. When I'm summoned, grant allies +1/+1 for each different subtype you've summoned this game. So subtypes are what is on the top. Yeti and Buhru and Elnak and whatever you have. There was like formerly a subtype archetype in Freljord where you had Pack Mentality that would give, I think, all units of one specific archetype or one specific subtype plus 3/3 in Overwhelm. You had only Yetis or something, was plus 3/3. Now they're trying to bring this back a little bit with the Warden of the Tribes. 9 mana, 6. I think 9 mana is way too much. That's like a 1. This if you see this card actually as a 6, you play this.
Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that this card is going to shake up the meta and be incredibly powerful. I do think this card is about as cheap as they could make it, because my understanding is this buffs itself.
Yes.
And given that it buffs itself and can buff like a 5-wide board, I think it is not unreasonable for this card to come down and be +5/+5 to your entire board and 11 power overwhelm. And the deck that this goes into, it doesn't really exist. There isn't this kind of like Blinding Light looking deck in Freljord, but I don't think this card is as bad as it looks. The deck doesn't really exist for it, but particularly at 8 mana, if it went down to 7 mana, certainly, I think people would be playing Warden of the Tribes and just killing people with it. So I think this card is better than the other two people in this podcast, but I'm not going to tell you this card is amazing.
Yeah, what I don't like about this card is that it only grants stats. If it would say like grant allies +1/+1 for each different subtype and a random keyword, I would totally be on board with you. But with just gaining a lot of stats at round 9, I don't think stats matter that much at this point. And you would much rather have like a relevant keyword.
Yeah, my thought is like there's a reasonable number of like tribed cards, particularly in Freljord, that have access to a worthwhile keywords. Like there's a bunch of Yetis with Overwhelm. There's like the Overwhelm Poro that's in Freljord, like Mighty Poro, I think it is. So like you can charge this unit up. There's like a bunch of cheap Overwhelmers, like the tough one. It doesn't have a key, it doesn't have a tribe, but if this card is giving like a reasonable sized board, +4/+4, and they all have evasive keywords, this card's pretty scary. Now, it's also 9 mana. I don't think this card is really going to do anything, but I think you'll get some Twitch highlights of people dying to this card. So
Yeah, for sure.
And the artwork is cute.
Yeah. Kind of scary, I don't know. Nightmares.
But they're cute poros doing like a snowball fight.
But what is this creature?
It's sticking its tongue out. Hello.
Okay, I guess it's cute. Yeah. What like Brom dreams about. What do Nightfall players dream about? I guess we already covered Darkin Harpoon. We have the Twilit Protector here. Twilit Protector. 2 mana 2/2. Daybreak, give Daybreak allies +1/+1 this round. Nightfall, grant Nightfall allies +1. I think this would be really flavorful if this would be mixed. Like Daybreak, give all Nightfall allies, and Nightfall, give all Daybreak allies. Because then you would work better than its own archetype. You play a Daybreak card, and then you play Twilit Protector. Flavorful. As it stands, we all rated similarly 6, 7, 6, 6, and 7. Leer, quickly tell us something about this card.
Oh, sorry, you said me, right?
Yes.
actually, no.
Oh.
Leer, go ahead.
Okay, I like the design of the card. I don't think it does busted things. But for 2 mana, it's very playable. Actually, the change you suggested, I really like that. The Daybreak and Nightfall effects might want to be changed. But at the same time, at 2 mana, I suppose you often want to just use it as a Daybreak effect. So yeah, I don't think it's overpowered, but for 2 mana, it's very playable.
Yeah. Okay, next card. We have the Witness is later. We have Zaun Bouncers. I think this one was before. Zaun Bouncers is here. 4 mana, 4/4 in PNC. Round start, flow, build 2 spell mana. So if you pay 2 spells last turn, get more mana the next turn. Otherwise, just 4/4. Give it a 3. Leer a 4. Drisoth, you also gave it a 4. Drisoth, tell us, what do you think about this card?
I think if you get stuff rolling, this card's pretty good. It like gives me vibes of the Veiled Temple from. I mean, I don't know how many people listen to this podcast that were around when Veiled Temple was busted, but that card was busted. And this card definitely gives me vibes of that. Like every turn you get 2 more mana and you can keep doing stuff. Unfortunately, spell mana is a lot worse than unit mana, which Veiled Temple gives you. A 4/4 body is a lot easier to kill than a landmark. So, is this card like horrible? No, I could see it on like something like an Aphelios deck just to like keep the weapons flowing. But I don't look at this card and I think this card is amazing. I think it's like, I could probably find a deck this card is reasonable in.
Okay.
Yeah, an aspect that I didn't like about this card is that it makes holding spelled mana actually bad. I mean, it makes sense because you want to activate this flow effect and you want to chain your spells or cycle them. But I don't know, I didn't like this aspect that you kind of have to be active with your PNZ deck and you can't stay reactive with your spells.
Yeah. I can see that. I think it's just another 4-drop in PNC that will not really. Maybe like if you have a really dedicated spell theme. I don't really see. Okay, then we have the Darkin Harp next. Over here, Darkin Harp, another Darkin equipment, 2 mana +2/+0, and quick attack. I spend 8 mana to play me as Stiratu. Stiratu is an 8 mana 8/6 quick attack, draw 2, then reduce those cards cost by 2. And we have it as I have it as a 6, Leer has it as a 6 as well, and Drisoth as a 3. I think this card is okay. You can play the equipment. Just to quick attack can be useful on certain units that don't have quick attack yet, which aren't a lot in PNC, but maybe Vayne, for example, you can put this into play for free. Then for the Vayne units, and then just have a good quick attack. And in late game, when you run out of your Vayne units or Vayne cards, you can then later on Stiratu and refuel those. Not that easy to shut down a 6 attack, 6 health guy. And of course, done it, you can recall it. That late in the game that you just want to play this unit, then you don't have any. Drisoth, if you don't like this card, why don't you like it?
The equipment seems pretty uninteresting to me. Most of the Darkin weapons that are like real good are considerably better than the improvise equipment. And this literally is an improvise equipment. It's a 2 mana +2/+0 quick attack that exists. I think it's like I don't remember what it's called, but it's one of the improvise equipment.
Fix some uppers, I think.
Yeah. So yeah, fix it something. Got a number in there somewhere. Anyways, Darkin Harp, I'm not excited about. I can get access to this type of effect through improvises in any region. So the equipment half, I'm uninterested in. And as we kind of talked about with Ibaros, most of these Darkins, like the actual unit side, they're pretty bad. I don't think any of them is like really good on rate. And like this one doesn't have spell shield or anything. It's like really exposed, just getting vengeanced. They trade up 2 mana on this one. So I feel like on this one, neither side I'm happy about. Both sides are okay, but in these Darkin weapons, I'm really looking for a side that I'm like trying to play in the game, and then a side that I have like, well, this is fine, I guess. And this one just has no side that I'm happy to play.
I can see that. How it actually. Another interesting card is the Unworthy Soul. 5 mana fast, Ionia. Low it costs 2 less. Recall a unit or landmark. If it has any attachments, destroy first. So basically a cheaper homecoming at 3 mana, but you don't have to do your own unit, you just recall something of your opponent. I gave it a 4, I gave it a 5. Drisoth, you gave it an 8. My reasoning for giving it a 4 is that it turns out that Homecoming is actually the better card over Will of Ionia. First people were like, oh my god, Homecoming is so bad. But it turns out that recalling your own ally unit is actually really good. You don't want to give up on this effect in comparison to Will of Ionia, where you just recall a unit. Even if Will of Ionia could recall a landmark, I don't think that would change that much. Don't think you want this in addition to Homecoming. My reasoning. Don't think this will see much play, even if it's like 1 mana cheaper Will of Ionia. Drisoth, why do you think it will be better?
I think 1 mana cheaper Will of Ionia is a significant increase. 3 mana is a big deal with spells because you can play it with entirely spell mana. So I'm pretty interested in this card just as a card. And then I've kind of mentioned previously, I'm pretty interested in basically any way to destroy equipments at this point. I think that is just a thing that is going to be important in this upcoming meta. I think there's going to be a lot of Darkin weapons that you'd really like to blow up before they flip into their Darkin side. And I just think there's going to be a lot of equipments running around. So
Yeah, one reason I didn't give it like an 8 or something is that usually recalling a unit is already a fairly reactive and conditional effect, because you just have to wait for like the right round or the right situation to recall, and then the chances that you also have activated flow is fairly low, and that's why I don't like this flow and recall together on a card.
Point.
But yeah,
I think later in the game it doesn't really matter if it costs 5 or 3, but the turn.
yeah, right. That's what I'm wondering about. Maybe then like destroying the attachment has value, but
we have to see as well on this. Right. Spirit of Wuju is Wuju. Next, 5 mana, 4/3. Low, I cost 2 less, then it's a 3 mana, 4/3. When I'm summoned, draw a spell. And here and Drisoth are kind of the same here, 6 and 5. I think you never want to play this as a 5, and it's just awful, so bad behind. And if you are a deck that wants to trigger flow relatively, then you kind of need a lot of spells, so you don't want to play random units that just give you more spells. And then 3 mana, 4/3 that draws you a spell would of course be good, but if you are mainly a spell heavy deck, you don't really want to run random beatdown creatures. And it's okay, but it's not. Yeah, do you see any particular?
yeah, I love that it draws a spell. I think even for 5 mana, it's okay to play. And for attack, for 5 mana, even if you play it right for 5 mana, it's like totally fine. Trades a lot of stuff. And I think here it's not like having already like a condition like recalling on the card. So this flow effect is more realistic to activate and then actually also play Spirit of Wuju. I just think this card is great. I think it's very easy to play and it draws you a spell. So I would play this, but maybe it's it takes away like spots from Ionia combo decks that you don't have. So maybe that's why I'm overrating it. But as a standalone card, the value it provides, I think it's very playable.
Drisoth, are you happy with playing a 5 mana 4/3 draw spell?
I'm not. I would kind of. Sorry. I would compare this to like Shadow Assassin or Zap Sprayfin. And so, like, I'm pretty interested in this card at 3 mana. I think you get like an extra stat, maybe 2 stats from where you're supposed to be. It doesn't have elusive, but it is just kind of like a larger body. So like at 3 mana, I'm interested in this card, but I don't think at 3 mana I'm like, oh my god, this card is amazing. I think I'm just a little happy that I get to play this card. And at 5 mana, I think this card is like horrendous.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of sitting here like, I mean, it's not bad. I'm not rating this like a 3, but I'm just kind of unexcited with this card.
Yeah. Same.
That's fair.
Okay. Yeah, analysis. We have the Dragon Caller next. And I have to say, this is like low-key the scariest unit, I think, in the whole reveal for me. Like, okay, 6 mana, 3/5, tune, and round start, flow, summon a The Empyrean, and grant it Ephemeral. The Empyrean is just a 6/5, 7 mana elusive you get as a prismatic when they start out the game. And yeah, it just summons it for free on round start. I still gave it a 4 because it's a 6 mana slow win condition type of thing, but I think that definitely our decks will just die to this, but it's also 6 mana. Yeah, you gave it a 5, Drisoth a 3. And Drisoth as the Ionia specialist, do you want to add anything to that?
I mean, it's like clearly calling back to like Eye the Dragon. The problem is like Eye the Dragon is like good because it's lifesteal early in the game and like keeps you alive. This card's like a decent win condition, but um, generally in Runeterra, like your win conditions are a lot dumber than this. There's stuff like Lee Sin that just kills you. There um, Nasus's atrocities. When you're getting up to like turn 6, 7, and 8, I'm not expecting to like chip in with 3 copies of the Empyrean on turn like 7, 9, and 11. I'm expecting to like just give my Lee Sin overwhelm and kill you. So
Yeah, it's just a too slow win condition, right?
I play this when you can just play Century. Okay, the Witness is next down here. This card I think is crazy. 4 mana, 3/3, flow, I cost 2 less, play, stun an enemy. So, and this is like the thing here. I think where this card is actually crazy is with Jhin. And like it's not really an Ionia card, it's like a Jhin card because it's a skill, it's also like the eye of the artwork. I think this really will play this as a 2 or 3 off in any Jhin, and of course playing skills also triggers flow, which just I think just replaces like Stagehand or Sunbird. Real deck. It's like Drisoth, you kind of agree with me, I think 6, Leer.
yeah.
Okay, Drisoth, yeah.
So like what you say, I actually 100% agree with. I am very uninterested in this card in any Ionia deck for much the same reason that I talked about with the Spirit of Wuju, where it's like at 4 mana, I think this card is just bad. And at 2 mana, I'm certainly excited, but I'm not like amazed. There are like 2 mana stunners that exist, and it's not that big of a deal. Where I am excited about this is Jhin, because like Jhin is just so good with wanting to play 2 mana stunners on turn 4, where it goes like Sunbird into Stagehand, attack for a bunch. They even started playing the like Skill Spinner, I think it is. It's the spider one. It's 2 mana, 1/1 fearsome.
Spellslinger.
Just because of like how good 2 mana stunners is in Jhin. Jin's also pretty good at activating flow because like if you time it out correctly, you can end up where you like play the Tusk Speaker and activate flow in your opponent's turn. I only gave it a 6. I think it's good in Jhin, but I don't think it really has any other home. So
I personally totally overlooked that skills activate flow. I was also like, yeah, this looks like a Jhin card. Otherwise, the stun effect is too conditional with flow, since stun is already pretty reactive. But with Jhin, it makes perfectly sense because you want to stun proactively. I just was like, oh yeah, you need to play spells. Jhin doesn't play proactive spells, so whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, of course, with skills, it activates it and then it will become really good.
Nice. Glad we all agree. So, next card, if you scroll up, is Moonlit Glenkeeper. 3 mana, 2/3. Fearsome, when you summon an ephemeral ally, granted +1/+0. Nightfall, summon a sapling. So, how I think this works is that it also will buff up the sapling, despite Nightfall technically being a play effect and this being a listener. A little bit true stuff, but it will just work. Right, cards usually do. And it's just a 3 mana 2/3 with a 3/1 sapling that just kills something for damage. I think that's pretty good, but don't really know the home for it. 7 over here. Yeah, you have it a 5, Drizzle with 6. Yeah, anything you want to add?
I think it's fine. I just like this card. Summoning a sapling is cool. It's not like summoning a sapling next round like a certain other card. I think this card is just easy to activate and use, and I'm not even sure if you need to put it into like Zed Hecarim or if you can just play it in a normal Nightfall deck. Yeah.
yeah, I think this card is good. I think people are gonna like look at it and see like ephemerals, and ephemerals is still bad. You probably do play this card in ephemerals, but like this card is not saving ephemerals. There's no hope for that deck to give up. But like I think this card is good in Nightfall, and I think this card is good in Fearsomes. Just like ignore the ephemeral text. Like I just don't care about that text. So
play it with Kindred or something. That's fine. Okay, Wave of Echoes is next. I think it's one of the most interesting cards, like hard push. It's a 6-mana 2/5 round end. For each allied that died this round, grant all allied copies of it everywhere +1/+1. Idea is, of course, you play a Spiderling, you play an Encroaching Mist, the Spiderling dies, and then you grant all your Spiderlings everywhere +1/+1 round end. Problem is, like, if also like stacks, if you have like 3 Spiderlings dying, then all of your Spiderlings everywhere get +3/+3. And it's all like sounds funny, but I think we all agree that it's not something you can do in competitive. Way too slow.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't thinking Spiderlings. Like, the coolest thing that I thought about with this deck was Sand Soldiers, but like, it's just way too slow. I mean, it does some cool stuff, but there's just no way I could. I would be shocked if this card was competitive. So
Yeah, also it only comes into play at round 6, right? So technically, like, all the cards that already died that you wanted to buff are already like passed away. And at round 6, you basically the stuff you wanted to buff already were played, and yeah, it just comes into play too late, I think.
yeah, if you
But
like,
yeah, go
if
on,
they
sorry.
if they buff this card and like drop its mana cost a couple of times, I think this card like shoots up in ranking very, very quickly. Like
Yeah.
when this gets to like 4 mana, I think this card is like an 8. But at 6 mana, there's just no way.
Yeah. Way too slow.
I mean,
Okay.
the artwork is supposed to look scary, but I think like the text is possible to like be extremely scary. But yeah, I think it has the potential to be scary, but not at 6 mana.
Probably tested it at 5 and were like, oh my god. Next card, Opulent Foyer. 3-mana landmark. When I'm summoned, or when you gain the attack token, summon a Ghastly Band. Ghastly Band, the 2/1 in Shadow Isles, that's Ephemeral and Hallowed. Get like 4/2. And yeah, this triggers when it's summoned, and also when you play like a Katarina, you get the rally, get a run start, and you get the attack token. Get this 2/1. Actually, have all the same ratings here, 4, 4, and 4. And yeah, Drisoth, tell us something about this card.
I mean, this card feels tailor-made for Red Gwen. Like, it's very good with Katarina, it's very good with Hallowed, and I just don't really see the point. Like, I mean, I don't think they could really buff it. If you make it 2 mana, I think this card is like probably too good. But I just don't see the point at 3 mana. I mean, like, how many Ghastly Bands is this gonna get you over the course of the game? 3 maybe. Yeah, like, I don't know, just play Strike Up the Band.
Yeah.
It eats space for your Harrowings. It's like much slower than Strike Up the Band. Like, I'm just not interested in this card. So
Harrow is actually such a good point. You can never get rid of it, so it's just higher from there. Oh yeah, we can see, like, you see the point.
I wouldn't call it offensively bad. I mean, there's like cards on here that I'm like, you just like cannot play this card, but it's unexciting. So
Yeah, I totally agree.
Swinging Glaive is next. 3-mana Shurima +2/+1 equipment. Strike, create a lucky find. I gave it a 6. I think this is going to see play in Akshan specifically. You play Akshan 2. Instead of playing the 4/4 equipment, you just play this one, and then you just start buffing up your action and leveling him. Does it see play over Bloodletters? Probably not. He's a one-off. Yeah, you're not impressed. Ooh.
Yeah, I would like it if it was 2 mana. Maybe you could play it with other cards that equipped itself with a 2 mana card, 2 mana equipment. But at 3 mana, you have to play it, then you have to strike, and then you have to play the lucky find for it to be good. And I think that's just too many steps.
Okay. Is there anything you want to add?
I mean, I think this card's okay, but I don't see how it like ever takes slots away from Bloodletter. And at that point, like, I don't know, maybe you play 1. So I'm unexcited.
Okay, next card. I don't see how you gave it any ratings. Like 2 mana, the Altar of Blood. Landmark, when you slay a unit, reduce the cost of the next Darkin unit you play by 1. So this is just for Darkin units, not for cultists. So it's only the Darkin weapons and Kayn and Varus. And it's Shurima, it's not a cultist, so you have to actually play Shurima before you can actually put it into the deck. I gave it a 1, I don't see any place for it. Drisoth gave it a 6. How do you use it?
There's exactly one card that makes me think that this card is playable, and it is Tarash, because Tarash is a Darkin that costs 10 mana and generally says, when I attack, win the game.
Yeah. Like the 10 mana, you bring all of your mini harrowing back.
Yeah, fill up your entire board. I think he's a 10/10. Like, I think there will be a deck that is Altar of Blood, like find Altar of Blood, find Darkin Halberd, play Tarash, and assume Tarash is good enough to win the game. And I think it's like not unreasonable that that is a plan that will work.
Interesting. I can see that. Like you see it in the artwork as well with Xolani here and then Rush flying in.
Yeah, literally no other Darkin other than Tarash. I think it's worth playing with Altar of Blood.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I personally think it can be cute for some like Shulani or Kayn to play them 1 round earlier. It's like it allows you to play a card 1 round earlier. That's like the big thing about this card. But you have to basically pass to round 2, and if you draw it later, maybe it sucks. So doesn't seem too appealing. But yeah, with this combo with the 10 cost card, it's probably playable, maybe.
Yeah. Next, we have Curse of the. So here, the 2 mana disintegrated burst speed, called it. It's 2 mana burst Shurima, predict. If a unit, I take double damage, and if I would die, obliterate me instead this round. I'm just following the things I have read about Twitter here. I gave it an 8. I think it's really strong, just like literally disintegrate for burst. Doubling the damage unit takes usually kills it, most instances of damage. And get like a free predict and obliterate is like nice to destroy some equipment on it. So yeah, just free equipment removal. Good to connect on. Yeah, you gave it a 3. Any reason for that?
Yeah, I didn't really like that it was in Shurima, which makes it awkward because, I mean, in Noxus, right, disintegrate works well, but in Shurima, you're not really onto this removal idea. I saw on Twitter some ideas about like overwhelm that it doubles the overwhelm damage, and then the Dexys also takes like more damage. I guess I overlooked that obliterate can like deny any
Equipments?
effects that it summons when it's like dice. I have Death Rattle in my mind, but it's from Hearthstone, so yeah, but right, I just think it's probably the wrong region for this card. But maybe again, I'm probably missing some combo.
I'm extremely uninterested in this like disintegrate comparison. I think comparing it to disintegrate like doesn't really make sense. I don't think this card really does disintegrate, and I don't think this card is good outside of the overwhelm interaction. And I think the overwhelm interaction is incredible. It's just that's the only interaction that I want to be dealing with this card, where you say like it's 2 mana burst, double my power. And I'm pretty interested in that. You just like give something vulnerable, swing with Renekton, and double Renekton's power. That sounds good to me. But
yeah, I can definitely see.
If you don't know how this works, with Overwhelm, when the Overwhelm unit like assigns damage to a unit, it gets doubled, and then any spillover is still doubled. It doesn't double again or anything, but like Renekton would be like challenging as a 12 power overwhelm unit. And it also stacks. So if you cast 2 of these, Renekton is now a 24 power overwhelm unit. And if you play 3, he's a 48 power overwhelm unit. So
that's scary.
Pretty good. I think you sometimes will generate this with like Seraphine and then it comes up. Double up a Mystic Shot. I can see it's mostly being used for Overwhelm instead. Okay, Camouflaged Horror. I've read this before. 7 mana, 5/3, fearsome, evolve, play. I strike an enemy in Shurima. And I gave it a 3. I think it's way too slow. Same with Ether Fiend. I have like a big guy that can be interacted with as a skill. And I think we mostly agree here. Leer, you gave it a 4. It was a 5. Yeah, any special implication or just.
Yeah, I compared it to Rampaging Bakai, just for the evolved archetype, and Rampaging Bakai doesn't see any play.
Yeah.
So I feel like, yeah, this is not probably not a strong card, but I don't think it's trash. Like, striking a unit is cool, and I like that they release new cards for the evolved archetype. I don't think this is a bad card, but I also don't think it will change the evolved archetype to be playable again.
Yeah, and I don't think this card is good in Evolve. It's not like the Evolve archetype has always been like super all in on Kaisa. I don't think this does anything for that deck, but like it is a one-sided strike. It's reasonably often 7 power, so I wouldn't be surprised to see this card like in some Shurima mid-range deck as a one of, but I don't think this guy's going to be running rough shot across the meta. So
Okay, then wait, what? Christ here. This rating. So sorry. Let's read the card first. Sometimes I get surprised. Where's it? Darkin
That's what we're
Aegis.
here for controversial takes.
Darkin Aegis, 2 mana, +1/+1, and tough. You may spend 5 mana to play me as Jural. Jural, 5 mana Darkin, 4/3 with Challenger and tough. And your opponent's spells cost 2 more while I am attacking. I gave this card a 9. I think this is like the best card out of set. And it's just both halves are ridiculously good. You have this one, you get Skiff of Fiora, tough and +1/+1. Then you have a tough Fiora, really good. And otherwise, you can play this guy out as well. I think this replaces the Lodestone Faded, and instead you just play this guy and have a better payoff, pulling off Faded, eventually carrying you through a combo turn.
Oof, I disagree.
Okay, go ahead.
I think in Faded it doesn't make sense to play, but overall, what I probably am missing is that you can open attack with Jural, and then it's difficult for your opponent to respond. But otherwise, with the round you summon him, your opponent can just play their spells before you attack. So that's kind of feels bad moment. And that's what I kind of didn't like about this card, that it only works while you're attacking, and yeah, your opponent just casts the spells before you attack. So it usually only becomes good if you play it like on your opponent's round when they spend some mana and then you open attack. And that's like a use I can see for it.
I think it's like Joseph, you can also say something about.
yeah, I mean, I think you're a little high on it, but I think it's like a solid equipment. Like Darkin Aegis is a very good equipment. Jural is a pretty good turn 5 play. Overall, this is like the type of Darkin equipment that really impresses me. Both sides are playable, they're useful, and they like help you fill out your curve the way you want it to. I don't really think this is going to see a ton of play in Faded. I mean, maybe Faded plays like 1 copy or something, maybe 2 copies. I don't think this is a 3 in Faded, but like various Demacia decks, I think will play some number of copies of Jural, and like I think he's pretty solid. I don't think he's incredible because like there is this problem of like people think this guy's gonna save them from Ionia, and you're gonna like play Jural, and he's gonna eat a palm, and then your opponent's just gonna do their Ionia things. So
Yeah, I think I underrated this card because I thought like, okay, this effect is really not that great, or just maybe overhyped. But actually, having a 4/3 tough challenging dude is probably a solid stat line to play it, even if you don't make that much use of its printed text on it.
What I really like about it is that it's really like helps you push these power positions. Play a lot of Fiora. You sometimes just have your Fiora on the board. You know your opponent has to react to your stuff. You don't know which cards they have in particular, and you would be very happy if you can just play another unit and force your opponent to palm it, because then you know they won't play you, won't palm you with Havoc, they won't palm you with Fiora, and this effect is basically an upside. Have this as the equipment most of the time, just put it onto unit. If you happen to not draw any units or your unit gets killed, you still have this as a backup plan, or as this play alongside. Turn 7, turn 8, you have a big board, they can't really develop anything, play another unit out, and then they have to act with the spells immediately and take down this guy instead of your buffed up unit.
Something that like I think people are missing with this card that I think actually gives it a decent amount of power is like I feel like what you really want to be doing with Jor is getting into combat and then like casting a single combat or something, and you have this problem of like I'm single combating your Karma, well probably not single combat at least, but like I'm strike spelling some unit that you want to play, and you need to defend it, and you have to defend it under this tax of 2 mana per spell. And so I'm just going to win all of these exchanges. Yeah, I think that's going to come up a lot, where like Joral's going to challenge something, and then they're going to like cast a single combat in combat, or cast your concerted strikes in combat, and it's going to be very difficult to win combat against Joral.
Okay, let's move on to the last 4 cards, I think. Or Leer, do you want to say something?
No, I think it's a good point.
Last, so we have Icathian Myths. You can either create an Icathian Mirage for 2 mana burst, that's the 2 mana 2/3, so you get 2 mana 2/3, 2 mana 3/2, sorry. You can either get a 2 mana 3/2, or you can create the Golden Spatula. It will not cost 0, so you have to pay 4 mana in total for a +3/+2 equipment. I would think this has a random effect when you put it on a card. Flavor says it definitely does something, but maybe it doesn't. Like half champions, it always did some random effect. I gave it a 4, and they also gave it a 4. I don't think 2 mana 3/2 is good. I don't think 4 mana this weapon is. Drisoth, you're high on it, an 8. Like about it.
I am reasonably high on it, so I put a lot of value on cards that like modularly are equipments, stuff like Darkins, and I think this like has a very similar situation to being a Darkin. I think Golden Spatula is pretty bad. Well, okay. Once you've gotten Golden Spatula, I think it's fine. The problem is like 4 mana for a +3/+2 equipment is not exciting. 2 spell mana for a 3/2, I think is serviceable. If it was unit mana, it's bad. But 2 mana for a 3/2 is like a rate that you are okay with. And given that we're okay with that rate, this optionally being an equipment where like you're playing like this Vayne package that has all these equipments where all these cards that say like put a 2 mana equipment in a play off of me. If you're missing an equipment, this Golden Spatula could be very valuable to you. So I'm pretty interested in this card. I think it's just like very, very good at serving the needs of your deck. It's just not particularly good at either, but very similar to like the good Darkins, where like both sides are fine.
I find it interesting that you decide to rate it an 8 then. It's like a different... I totally agree with your point, but just because both sides are just okay, I would not give it an 8. But you see the utility in this card, and that's why you rate it so high.
I think I, like, as a player, just kind of like value removing fail rates pretty highly. I might overvalue them, to be fair, and I think that card is like very good at removing fail rates. So it's the type of card that I probably overrate. So.
Yeah. 3 cards left. Rune Squire. We have a 2 mana Noxus 2/1 Challenger when I'm summoned Reforge. Was the Blade Fragment mechanic. And yeah, I gave it a 7. I think it's a decent card. Especially if you roll like the Quick Attack Fragment. You have a 5 and 6. 5 from Leer. Drisoth. And yeah, Drisoth. Anything you want to add to this card?
I think this card's like pretty interesting just because like a lot of Riven's package is built around like getting a blade, like Blade of the Exile, very, very quickly. And more reforge effects like really help you get Blade of the Exile faster, because I mean, it used to be that there were like 3 units that reforged, and now there are 4 units that reforge. So it's definitely a significant improvement to how fast you can get Blade of the Exile. And like, I don't know, it's a 2-1 challenger, so you can just like trade it off with something. So
Yeah.
seems fine to me. I don't think it'll do anything outside of a Riven deck, but Riven is very, very happy to have this card. So
Yeah, you want to add anything?
No, I totally agree. I think it's a solid card.
Yeah.
It reminds me of Lead Feather Tracker just for 2 mana with the reforge ability. I think it's playable.
Basically what the tracker. Okay, and Brutal Skirmish, next 3 mana fast. Noxus, destroy an enemy's equipment, an ally and that enemy strike each other. So I've rated this on the basis that I think that you can also target like an unequipped enemy with this one, otherwise it would be playable. And yeah, 3 mana single combat in Noxus. Turns out 3 mana single combat is not as good as 2 mana single combat. Cards like Strafing Strike before that just very little play. If they had like random upside. And yeah, I give it a 5. I don't think Noxus units are very good at surviving being struck back. One-sided strike like Whirling Death be much stronger than in Noxus than these double strike cards. They hit back because Noxus units have a lot of attack but not a lot of health usually. For example, up the Trifarian Glory Seeker. To example for that, can strike heavily, but it can't really survive being struck back. I don't think single combat for Noxus is that big of a deal. Because we're a little bit higher on it. Any particular reason?
I mean, I think this keeps coming up. Like, I really value being able to destroy equipment in this upcoming meta. I think that's going to be a big deal. And I mean, 3 mana single combat is not a card that I'm super excited about, but if it blows up an equipment that has value, I'm interested. So
Okay.
Yeah, I also like this more than the Freljord destroy equipment cards that we saw, because now this is an effect that is kind of good. Like for 3 mana single combat, it's not particularly exciting, but it's still playable, I think. And in most cases, you will destroy equipments because equipments are so good right now. So I think that just the effect that goes with destroying the equipment is solid, and that's why I like this card more than other destroy equipment cards that we saw today.
Okay. And then the last card, I'm so happy that you also agree on this one. Legionary Charge. Draw an ally with 5+ power, or grow an ally to 5 power this round. I was generous, gave it a 5, and both gave it a 3. I would rather go to a 3 than to a 6 or something. And yeah, my reason is, sure, it can tutor out a specific card, like in Vayne, if you want to find your Leviathan, then you can do that. But that's very situational. And the grow an ally to 5+ power doesn't matter then. And it's really only that good if you play like Annie, for example. But then you also have the problem to have to pre-commit it. Like, one doesn't just going to block you Annie or leave it unblocked or something. And it's really a little bit of an awkward.
Yeah, but I like this idea of seeing as probably a treat for like a specific card with 5+ power. Maybe that's like a cool combo. I'm not sure which specific card you would like to tutor in Noxus. Like, okay, you can find. Does Vayne have 5 attack?
leveled.
But the Leviathan, okay.
Yeah, level
The
up.
best card. So I don't see the growing to 5 attack doing anything. I don't see really any use cases. Maybe that's like a fail rate where like you've already gotten your card that you're trying to tutor. I think you have to be trying to tutor with this card for it to be really good. I tried to find a card that was worth tutoring, and the best I could come up with is Rumble, because like Rumble decks are really good with Rumble and really bad without Rumble. It's also in Noxus, which like sounds pretty good. That said, like, I don't see that being worthwhile. And that's like the best I could come up with. So
Yeah.
I'm not high on this card.
Yeah, people were like, now Ude is finally viable because you can always stretch him from. Not going to make Ude viable.
Good point, yeah.
Okay. And that's all of the cards. We can quickly scroll through the patch notes. We can talk about Nami, like shortly. I think it's what do you like this Nami nerf?
I do not like it. I mean, so I like that Nami was nerfed. I think Nami needed to be nerfed. I don't like the specifics of this nerf. I think it leaves a lot of the really unpleasant parts of Nami, of people just dying from like 18 to Nami buffing something 10 times. So I don't really like how the nerf was done, but Nami definitely needed a nerf. I think we're missing a bunch of adjustments that need to happen. Like Momentous Choice Shelly is still a thing, and it's going to kill a lot of people. But I mean, they nerfed Nami, so that's progress. But
Yeah.
I think we got a lot of problems. But I think they're saving them for like Worlds patch so that they can deliver a really exciting big balance patch. So makes sense.
I personally like that they don't nerf her to like be completely unplayable. I mean, I personally understand that Riot decides to like do a lot of heavy nerfs, like on the Illari package, for example, where they just killed her completely. And that's kind of something that happened repeatedly in the history of Legends of Runeterra, that just strong cards get like overly nerfed, so they don't become like they don't have to become nerfed again. But I like these more cautious nerfs where the card might still be strong, and yeah, you just maybe you like Nami, but you don't like that she's completely busted, but you still want her to be playable. And this is like a change like that where you might still see Nami decks, but they are just not as strong as before. But she's not dead either.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'd really advocate if I had any ability to influence the LR devs, I'd really advocate for just being willing to make very small changes much faster. Because I think a lot of the frustration people get with balance patches is these like pretty obvious issues just kind of fester for a while, and then people get upset if like you tinker down their power level. Where it's like I'd point to the Kaisa changes where like we tinkered down Kaisa's power level, and like that needed to happen like much faster if that was the only change you're going to make. Like people have
Yeah,
this problem of like the longer they sit on a problem, the more they want you to act. And it's like just either act fast or like kill cards.
yeah, maybe like make small adjustments every 2 weeks instead of a bigger patch every month. But personally, I mean, I come from other card games, and I hear that Drisoth, you're also coming from other card games, like physical card games where you don't see any changes at all, right? So I already really appreciate that Legends of Runeterra is doing them once a month. But yeah, I guess you can always see room for improvement.
I was originally from Magic, and I think we're going on like 3 years of companions still being a thing, and like we figured out that one shouldn't be around. So
I mean, they nerfed like the one guy now. They banned him from Murder, and
yeah, they nerfed the entire mechanic and then still had to ban 3 of them all the way down to vintage. And it's like, maybe we screwed up.
yeah. And I read this balance, the ban list update, and was like 3 cards in total, and it was like, that's all you're going to change in the format for like quarter of a year. I don't know how often you ban list updates in Magic nowadays. It's like amazing to have a frequent update in Legend of Leer here. I'm sure you could change more, but I think we're really pushing our luck and our demands. I would also prefer the 2-week balance patches instead of full month, but definitely still much more than we get. And you have to keep in mind that they also test it. Like for example, Gwent. I play Gwent recently a lot. They also do weekly or monthly balance patches, but they don't test the balance patches at all, or like maybe a little bit, but don't do like much play testing on them as far as I know. And it's pretty obvious that some of the cards are just super broken. and haven't been tested. So I think it's good to take the time and go through it and work on these changes.
Yeah, I would kind of push that like there should be different philosophies for buffs and nerfs. I think you should not knee-jerk buff. That goes really badly if you just buff stuff and you haven't tested it and it ends up way overpowered and wreck stuff. But like oftentimes with nerfs, you can tell pretty quickly if a deck is like somewhat overperforming and you can just tinker it. Like don't do a change like this to Nami. I don't know, maybe push her to 9 level up like months ago, back when like SI Nami was the thing. And like maybe you don't even have to make this change if you tinker with Nami's power level a bit. But whatever.
I think Nami was a really long edge case. We talked about it with MTAG last week, and he mentioned that she was always flying under the radar and was not like meta dominance until right after the balance patch, around when the balance patch came around. I can agree with that. It was really good analysis. So if you want to hear more about Nami, you can go back to the last video. We're running long on time. I just want to really scroll through this patch, this well, new mechanics. We have some Power of Champions updates. We will talk about that next week. And then we have the event pass, that event notes, station, champion skins, and no level up stuff. Artbacks. Yeah, new region icons. And then the gameplay changes. I think the only relevant ones still, like we have the landmark guys being changed. And removal, like you only, if you blow up your opponent's guy, sarcophagus, for example, doesn't trigger anymore. A lot of sense. I think that otherwise bug fixes, copy of a unit that is an item is created, the copy will now correctly have that item. Here is by of champions, basically. Visual issue where burst space would overlap visually. Okay, visual issue. Kind of funny one. Does not longer fizzle if a player's deck is out of cards. You still get animations and stuff. Fizzle within Darkin cards for not displaying accurate buffs. Darkin equipment copied by Orn is now correctly playable as a Darkin unit. Okay, bug fix. Darkin Better now correctly mentions Lunari sacrifice requirement. Okay, Nasus would be fully healed when stasis statue. Okay, so there's nothing really valuable. I always go to the bug fixes after the Aurelia patch where they just buff the Aurelia in the bug fixes. But nothing really here otherwise. Okay, I think that's it. To rate this patch overall, I think it's like a solid 7 out of 10 for cards. That cool medics. I like it.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited for the cards. They seem interesting. I mean, it's kind of hard for me to say anything too conclusive just because like I feel like stuff is being held back for Worlds patch, which is a really exciting patch coming up because I presume there's going to be a lot of changes just to shake stuff up. And that's going to be the patch that I really look forward to. But like the skins are cool, the cards are cool. I'm pretty excited. So
Yeah, I totally agree with you guys. I like this patch. There are some good new cards that we can try out. It's always exciting to try out new champions. And yeah, I actually wondered this. What's your probably your next deck you will test out on Nether tomorrow? Or the day after tomorrow? When can you play the patch?
yeah.
Depends on when this releases, but basically when it's out.
The one that most excites me to try is just like a Seraphine PNZ. Probably gonna try with Targon and Aphelios first.
Nice.
But that's the one that I'm probably most excited about. Although I've actually considered, just because like I kind of have a long-standing project to try and play less games and play them more thoughtfully. So I've considered just like skipping ladder for a week and spending a lot of time with stats and trying to figure out what's good to do stats and watching streams and stuff and not really playing and then try and play later. So I might do that. I might not. We'll see. Probably depends on how bored I am tomorrow, to be completely honest. But
yeah, but you're also a pretty big stats guy, right? We talked a little bit in the statistics Discord, and that's something I was unaware of. So, what's the reason behind you doing so much stat stuff? Do you just love it, or do you do it as a profession even?
So it is actually my job. My job is in data science, and the reason that I actually started doing a bunch of work, so if you run into a lot of my stat stuff, it's through a site called Tableau, which at least in American Business Society, there's a massive amount of Tableau. So I actually decided that I wanted to learn Tableau, I think it was about a year and a half ago at this point. And I strongly believe if you're going to learn a statistical tool, you should learn it on data you personally understand really well. So if you were like a carpenter, you should learn on carpentry data sets. Because the reason is, if you get an absurd result, if it's in a field you don't understand, you'll have no clue anything went wrong. Whereas if you get an absurd result and it's a field you understand, you can tell immediately that there's a bug and go try and fix it. And so I was like, well, I need some data to learn off of. What do I like spend way too much time on? Legends of Runeterra. Why don't I learn Tableau with Legends of Runeterra data? So that's what I started doing. And luckily, with a lot of the stats tools, once you've done a lot of work, most of the stuff is automated. So a lot of the stat stuff, basically, at some point, I spent some time to learn Tableau. I set up this document, and now I just load data into it whenever, and I don't really have to do much work for it. So the community can profit off my learning. So
Okay, and yeah, check out Drisoth's Twitter for future updates and our Revan server. And thank you for watching. If you sticked around for the whole 2.5 hours, that's a very special person and we love you. And yeah, thanks for watching and see you in the next podcast.
Bye.